passion. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We can't go out, man, forget my peace. You take the west, I'll take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise, move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys, not so tough, but mans keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize, right guys, let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan, if you wanna touch me, please use caution. Stop that, stop that, stop that.
Izzy, I don't want to overreact without perspective off of a single game. Okay. I don't want to, okay? But what I'm about to say, you tell me if you didn't feel it at least slightly yesterday. Roy, can you give me some overly alarming imaging of any sort that you have back there? Yeah. Do something with the lights in here. Yes.
You know, we could never do this if we were on traditional radio. This is an FCC violation. I remember one time Gary Blau wanted to kill me for doing this.
I think ESPN got fined for this recently.
Wow. Should we tell people not to panic?
I think it's funnier that Roy probably didn't know any of that and may have just stepped into a second early EP mistake of playing. You got lucky on playing a sound we're not allowed to play as an alarm sound. You got lucky, right?
Completely forgot about Gary Blau.
Okay.
Dan is a 20-year seasoned veteran of this game. To be honest, he's the one that called for it.
I called for alarming sounds. I didn't call for these alarming sounds.
Roy picked the most hockey goal-sounding alarming sound in the audio library as well.
Okay, but you guys, I don't think are going to disagree with this creeping feeling that happened last night.
This just feels like regular show. There's always alarms going off on this show.
That's true.
Fire drills.
What is an alarming sound that isn't an alarm? Just so we're clear the next time when you call for one.
Like my phone when it rings in the morning to wake me up.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
That's called a radar, Dan.
Well, I've got a number of different sounds. It's not just radar is one of them, is it not? I've got dozens of possibilities. I've got a bit of tinkling. There's a tinkling sound.
A wind chime?
that's less alarming.
I've got one for whenever you email us at 3:30 a.m.
Which is often. What I'm going to say right now, I believe to be true as a creeping feeling, and oh my God, it is not a creeping feeling that I have had since Pat Riley got here to have a court dedicated for him. I can't believe what I'm about to say.
Oh, boy.
Did the Orlando Magic pass them too in the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, they did last year.
Feels that way.
Yeah.
No, have they passed them? I'm not talking about 1 year where you're like, oh.
A one-year division title outlier?
Yeah, like I'm talking about past them for real. Like, oh, they got the young team that plays defense.
Yeah, I got looked at kind of funny when I mentioned, when we were
sorry.
talking about all the teams. I get looked at kind of funny every day. But when we went through the teams in the Eastern Conference that all improved in the offseason, that are clearly better than the Heat, no one invoked the Magic. And the Magic added some role players, but traditionally...
Except for Kevin Clark.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Izzy, but young teams that creep into the playoffs in the fashion that they did, they typically don't slide back. They usually continue ascending.
They normally do, and if you're going by that premise, you could say the Indiana Pacers are similar, right? They could probably make a leap there. What I'll say about Orlando is they already had the great defense in the Eastern Conference last year, and they added KCP, so it should be better. I think, to Dan's point, Paolo Banchero is effectively, to me, Jimmy Butler 2.0. A little bigger, a little stronger, defends like crazy, not afraid to shoot it from deep. You put those elements together, and it's just like, yeah, they have passed them.
Okay.
Because the Heat is supposed to answer that with more three-point shooting and depth, but it didn't look like they could do that yesterday.
This is one of the creeping things that sort of made me, look askew at you're watching Pat Riley literally age in remembrance of legacy in a way that makes him speak at halftime. The game is close at halftime, but what happens in the second half? He's talking about Banchero and what he represents to them. Clearly, they're one star as the Heat are in transition. Like, oh, Jimmy is the star, but does he really want to be here? How much more of this mileage can there be on those legs? We've seen deterioration, and this part, to me, is super interesting. At the end in Cleveland, The Cavs thought, even though LeBron was putting up a triple-double in the playoffs before being extinguished by the Celtics, Cavs felt, oh, he quit, while statistically putting up a triple-double in the final game. He's quitting. He doesn't care that much. It looks like quitting when you lose, but he was frustrated going up against Boston. He changes the way he does things, builds a new team. The last year in Miami, the Heat organization in those finals against the Spurs, while LeBron put up huge numbers in the finals, are like, he's not trying as hard as he was. He's not working this the way that he was. To the human eye, to you and me, not in statistics, would you and I recognize if Jimmy Butler, could he be good enough at basketball to put up decent stat lines that get him to a new contract, but also frustrate people in-house because he's not happy with what his situation is, and we all know that this is going to end badly whenever it ends badly.
It's strange to even make a guess on that because you're assuming Jimmy Butler's top motivation is the next contract, which I understand a lot of people would say, of course, that's his top motivation. But isn't it legacy? You don't think Jimmy Butler wants to not be that guy who came in and almost won it? I think Jimmy Butler not only wants legacy, but this is what he chose. He's not going to go somewhere else to do this. He's not going to go to Sacramento and say, hey, let me win one over there. He wants to do it here, and he believes in his heart, I believe, that will result in the new contract. And for fear of putting too much spin on this, it was just one game, etc. But this is a Miami Heat offense that's trying something new. And that game felt very unnatural yesterday. The mid-range was absolutely absent. It was like a jail. You couldn't go in there.
Orlando has no confusion about where they're going for their offense.
Correct. I'm not comparing them. I do think at the moment Orlando has passed them. What I'm saying is you're correct. Miami is in a transition in that their offense is literally in a transition. They're working on something different. Bam said after the game, Jimmy and I have to find our place to be aggressive here. You could tell by watching it, it didn't feel like natural basketball. It was either three-pointers or the rim and nothing else. And I know that's what the game is now, but that's what people complain about when they watch the game now.
Yeah, what you just mentioned about Bam saying that he felt like he was needing to just make the right play in a new offense. It's almost like in football, if they hire a new offensive coordinator and we're looking at the first 10 minutes of the first quarter of the first game and making assessments on that offense. But in the first half, the offense looked great in terms of moving the ball, player movement, body movement. The issue really for them was defensively, and that's going to be an issue all season long. Their personnel is not the same as it's been in years past, and so I mentioned it in that silly preseason top 5 last week that they were averaging 15 steals a game, and that meant something.
Jess, what happened? Jeremy, I'm going to ask you to leave right now.
What?
Oh,
no, wait, Izzy, that was my joke. I wanted to make fun of the power of friendship first, and you stole it from me.
Does Dan get the power of friendship or no?
They didn't do it on air. It was a private thing that they were doing amongst each other there. There's often private shows going on around here that are better than the real show. I wish it were the public show.
Power of Friendship was on the real show while you were in New York last week. It was one of Jeremy's top 5 reasons why he was excited about the Miami Heat season.
Okay, but
so I got to leave.
And I just wanted to throw that in his face.
I know, but I now.
And Izzy beat me to it.
But you did it with each other and not with me, which would have been the way to do that on air. As I was kicking Jeremy out, instead of getting in the way of what I was doing,
Dare Bear.
You could have supported what I was doing. What I'm doing with Jeremy is I'm kicking him out because he said in the first half they look great offensively and yammer, spin. So please, right now, create for him a spin room where I can have something left of center here that is radical liberal, and all he does is defend the Miami Heat at every turn, and it does not matter what it is we're saying. He will find a way to spin the positive on it. So create for me a spin room where at least I have, obviously and aesthetically, the ability to show people that he is compromised and biased and our center has moved. Do you know how hard it is to be more extreme than Parakeet Cortez? Do you know how hard it is to be more obnoxious than Mike Ryan? Mike Ryan, did you even watch that Heat game? Mike Ryan, you don't even care the way Jeremy does. You don't even care to be biased on the Miami Heat. You feel like you've been right about the Miami Heat for 2 years, and now you're just bored by them.
A few months ago, I said, I don't have a new thought on the Miami Heat. I am
Nothing's come up yet.
incapable of making a new take. I get positioned as a Heat homer. I've been, I guess, to the Heat community pretty staunchly anti-Heat. And no, I didn't watch the game because I wasn't able to.
Yeah, that's tricky.
I was one of, it was dicey. Like some people that have Xfinity were able to watch FD Sun. I wasn't able to. Yeah, there's a new gambling entity.
Yeah.
And so I thought I could have a clever work. I don't know if it's because they played the Magic, and FD's son was like, we'll black it out. And then I went on the FD app, and I have all the credentials. I have all the packages.
It's a different app now.
Yeah, but I have all the credentials for it because it's a carryover from the previous B-Sun Sports, which was also a gambling entity, which speaks to how bad they are at everything over at Bally's. Because everyone's like, wow, hey, look.
I thought it was B.
Hey, a gambling entity is now the regional sports network. Everyone had that same opinion, totally ignoring the fact that B is supposed to be one because they've never done anything right. What do they do well? Anyways, I wasn't able to watch it. I tried for 25 minutes, and I realized I don't actually care this much. Wow. So I'm going to stop, and maybe the next game that's not against another team from the state of Florida, I can watch. If I can't, then I may pull a call into Xfinity. But no, I wasn't able to watch. I did bet the Magic, though, and won.
I will tell everybody here that if he had been watching, he's been warning you of I will hate the Heat from there for about, I don't know, when was it that they traded for Terry Rozier? Because that was the game last night that Mike is worried about, which is Bam and Jimmy Butler don't do anything. Like that is as bad as both of them can be statistically on the court at the same time. Like they can't be worse than that. There can't be a worse game that the two of them have played that many minutes and been that useless in the game. And then Terry Rozier is doing an inefficient 5 for 15. That's the game Mike Ryan has feared for a while. But I wanted to talk because Jessica and Tony are laughing at you, Mike, and I'm really concerned about this. In the streaming age, as they bleep with the customers and make things super confusing because this is not something you can change. People are used to getting this stuff the way they've gotten it, and you're really going to test some sports consumer customer allegiances if you don't give people the way to find the games. If Mike Ryan is having trouble at this, what do you think it's going to look like for me soon when I start going through things and I cannot find the game when Mike Ryan's supposed to be? It's always, hey, Mike, fix this for me.
Well, it's just going to get more expensive.
Dude, it's plenty expensive for me. Not to look at me, Louie, but I pay several hundreds of dollars to watch sports.
And you make these. I did this recently for the Panthers. I downloaded something called Panthers Plus. And I was like, okay, if this is going to keep me from having to sign into my sister's Fubo account every time, I will pay $70 for this. And I'm pretty sure I paid twice because the first time I paid, logged in, and I went back, and it was like, oh, you still don't have anything. And there's $70 just for Panthers games.
I don't think you actually need Panthers Plus.
Really?
I don't need it. I'm a Panther fan. I watch every Panther game.
I got YouTube TV. I can't watch them.
They're on the Spelling Bee network now, and I'm able to watch them.
Mike, it was really easy for me. So I went to my Fire Stick TV and I said FD, right? And then it popped up, and then I clicked it, and then I clicked in like the credentials.
Wait a second, that sounds like one of those illegal
Tony,
states.
And then I
appreciate you walking me through this. I do all those things. I spoke into my remote FD, and it's like, all right, here's FD.
Download it, and then I
click
downloaded
FD, and it's like, you need a subscription for this. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I watched their preseason game a few days ago
on FD.
Oh yeah, well it wasn't. It was B then.
Ah, see that's the thing. The crossover from B to FD is the difference.
So I put it in the group chat.
That's not the spelling bee.
No, that's a different.
So A and B and D are not the spelling bee.
Yeah.
There's spelling bee, there's B, and then there's FD.
So, not to toot my own horn here, but I know my way around this tech, okay? So I put it in the group chat, hey, is anyone else having an issue? And other people that had the same service that I had
Do you have a
didn't
TV
have an
group
issue.
chat, or was it specifically
No,
an NBA group chat?
it's a catch-all one that
It
you
was
can
the
talk
shit
groups.
chat.
No, this wasn't the shit chat, and we use
Wait,
S.
I have a question. Is FD a regional network? So is it
It's
FDR?
all regional networks.
They're all the Bs are now FDs. Right. So I put it in the group chat, hey, is anybody else who has Xfinity, does anyone else have this issue? Some of them said yes. Some of them said no. I put it out on social media. Some of those people didn't have an issue.
You didn't text me.
Buddy, I'm good.
Tony, you say you're good, Mike.
I watched
Mike,
it.
Mike,
I watched the entire
Mike,
thing.
You say you're good, and I understand you are good at being condescending, and everyone here is good at condescending Tony. But I believe Tony, generationally from Cubans from another time, knows how to jerry-rig all his equipment, so he's getting all the games, and he's paying
good.
less than anybody.
That is true. I pay like $40 a month.
My favorite part about watching
Maybe
Heat
illegal.
games,
If that.
My favorite part about watching Heat games on Fubo TV, which again is not mine, it's my sister's, is that other family members also sign in, and when it says the streaming limit, it says continue watching or try or watch something else. I continue. I kick all the other family members off, and I send a family group chat. Please, I'm watching the Heat game. Get the hell off the
Izzy's
TV.
old school Latin of 7 relatives in a house sharing a password. Tony's new school, no, we've mastered the game. I know how to get all of this stuff for $9.
And the FBI shut down one of the sites, but we moved and we made a better site, Dan.
I have a
Don't
just
say
a,
that so
a
loudly.
clarifying
I didn't say anything. We're
question.
talking about FDs and Bs and all that. I'm doing my own thing.
Regarding the FD, if I had hypothetically wanted to watch the Heat, which I did not, I was watching
Good
the
for you.
Liberty-Kennesaw State game last night.
Banger.
Hypothetically, how would I get it if I have YouTube TV? I can't watch
You
the
can't
Heat
watch
at
on
all?
because I also have YouTube TV. I have a lot
That's
of
crazy.
I have a lot of things. Yeah, during the football season, I treat myself. I'm like, one of the TVs could use a multi-screen, so I do that. Even though I already have 3 screens, I have a very impressive living.
Can I tell you an old man move that happened to me? I didn't realize that my NFL Sunday ticket was on auto renew. I was like, I'm definitely going to take a year off of this because I hear the prices are crazy. Oh, too late. Already renewed.
That's how they get you.
It is.
So I canvass on social media, and some people said I'm having the same issue with Xfinity. Other Xfinity customers were like, I'm able to watch it. So, okay, weird luck of the draw. But universally, everyone thinks that app is trash. That app is if you look in the App Store, it's rated 1.5 stars. And it had been, and that's not just an FD thing. That was a B thing. Yeah. So I try
What
to
I
log
don't
in.
understand about the FD and the B is that Tony's welcoming and inviting the F, the B, and the I. That's what he's doing.
Well, they shut that one down, but we, again,
I'm not going to be the guy in the chat. All right, send me a link because ultimately, I don't need to see the Wagners. I'm good.
Tony could have sent you a link, though, and solved all your
I
problems
could,
last
but he
night.
didn't text me. He said respectfully. I don't even think he said respectfully. He just said I'm good. Which
bud.
okay, that's fine.
good.
I'm gonna actually turn
I
this
didn't-
way
I
now
didn't-
Paper trail.
and not lean that way.
I didn't need a
Patrol.
link. I didn't need a link, and I certainly wasn't going to sign up for another streaming service because I have pretty much all of them, and I wasn't going to do the 7-day trial. I'm not giving you that, FD, not at all. So I just realized, okay, maybe it's worth a call into my cable carrier, but I'll make that call when they're not playing Orlando because maybe FD hasn't figured out this whole wonky regional blackout thing.
So I told my wife, look, B turned into FD, and she's like, well, why did that happen? I was like, well, B was in trouble. FD came in, they took care of it, whatever. I was like, look, I want to start watching Heat games. I'm making a promise to myself as a
Now?
new father. Yeah, because you know me, I usually tune in towards the playoffs, and then we start
But
ramping
why
up.
this season?
I thought you
This
knew
feels
both.
like the
I
worst
do,
time
but I
to
just
do
don't
it.
watch the Heat. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna really lock in. I'm gonna start watching these games
For your child or for you?
for me.
Okay.
How you positioned it,
But
that you
I'm
were
saying-
doing a selfless act to make yourself a
Of
better father.
fatherhood. You're watching.
Correct.
You're watching this Heat season when they're worse than the Orlando
Power
Magic.
friendship, Dan.
As a new father, there's things that I want to be consistent with, right? Taking care of a daughter, watching the Heat. Like there's
Watching
things
frustrating basketball.
Right,
is
there's things
a
in
heck
my
of a choice.
life
Terry
as,
Rozier.
as frustrating
Terry
things
Rozier
happen,
will
I want to
prepare you
add
for a
more
frustrating life of parenthood.
frustration. Exactly. So I was like, look, babe, I'm gonna start really locking down, watching these Heat games. Okay, she's like, okay, good. I'm like, once the baby's born, I'm gonna go on paternity leave, but then I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna be ready. We got the NBA full swing, blah blah blah. And then we start watching the game. She's like, so you're gonna watch all these games? And I was like,
It's a lot
Maybe
of
not
them.
all of them.
It's a lot of them. It makes me want to talk about how funny it is that Embiid is already saying I'm not playing any back-to-backs. There's an
Ever.
investigation.
Well, that team's done too.
Paul George and Embiid, first game out. No, we're out tonight. Zion Williamson, I'm out tonight. First game out. This makes the old heads crazy. It has to.
Well, there was a bit of a disconnect because I don't think the media has come down strongly enough on this load management thing. And Izzy says, I think they've come down pretty strong, but it's game 1 of a season. And Stars are already
funny.
And Stars are already doing load management. And I asked Izzy, as someone that I've never played basketball at that high level, I'll run around in the gym and feel sore the next day. Like, I understand it's physical exertion, but I feel like the NBA Players Union has done such a great job at convincing us that basketball is so much more grueling on the body than it actually is. Like, I understand why a pitcher can't go out there and pitch every day, but I don't understand why Chris Middleton can't.
I would say the way Jimmy Butler plays
I
is
would say
physically taxing if you're wanting to go to the floor 16 times a game to get fouled.
And I feel like you bought it hook, line, and sinker because I feel like he's fully capable of doing it occasionally back-to-back nights.
Other guys have.
I do think I'm disagreeing with Mike here where I say I don't think that players have gotten away with it. I think players have gotten a lot of heat from reporters over the years, Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, all of them for injuries, but also just for missing time. But I do think that players have gotten in this whole concept of my body needs to be perfect to play. In the regular season, anyway. In the playoffs, they'll play through things. In the regular season, if it's the slightest tweak, I think they're taking that day off. And I think the coaches and other players will say, yeah, that makes sense. We want him at his best. Next man up mentality, all that. So they've talked themselves into that being the case. But if you go back just 15, 20 years, there's guys playing through things all the time, and they survive through the seasons. So you have your detractors.
Zeke played with a broken ankle, Dan. Okay?
Oh, I'm not.
Larry Bird was on the floor for 90% of his career.
Look, speaking of old heads, because this is a plague on the NBA. This has been super interesting to watch. The NBA has gotten to be an international sport and bigger than baseball because it does such a good job of making its stars, and now they're upset when their stars behave like stars. Like, this has been an entitlement passed down. Yes, of course, Michael Jordan played all the games. They all played 82 games during a season. But now you've got the former president of the United States looking at Halliburton and saying, you bums today. Like, looking straight in his face. You guys need to try. Like, stop. Look, man, this is the strongest stance I've ever seen Obama take.
Can I say something, though? Y'all got to have a little more pride in that All-Star game. I mean, look, it's not as if y'all don't play pickup during the summers.
Right.
You know how to play in a way that, all right, I'm not going to hurt anybody. I'm not going to take anybody out. That All-Star game's, it's broke, man.
Well, I mean,
like, people just, like, not running. Everybody just trying all kinds of.
Well, I'm not.
It used to be when Kobe and Michael and Isaiah, those guys were playing, man. I mean, they weren't playing the way they did regular season, but they wanted to win.
This sounds like a conversation with my pops right now. He gave me the same speech.
It insults the game.
Rack 'em.
That sounded like a segment from your show the other day when Amin just wanted to be Barack Obama and talked over you all the time. Tyrese Halliburton was not getting a chance to talk. The president was not done.
To that point, Halliburton shot like 4 shots from half court during the All-Star game.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Well, what's happening in the sport is super interesting to me because, of course, this is what it's raw.
It's the only time I've ever seen Halliburton struggle to get a shot off.
He was, I'd like to play that again comedically just so that you can listen to the comedic perfection in Obama was, oh, Halliburton, you think you're a star? No, I'm going to get this opinion off. You're not going to say anything here.
Can I say something, though? Y'all got to have a little more pride in that All-Star game. I mean, look, it's not as if y'all don't play pickup during the summers.
Right.
You know how to play in a way that, all right, I'm not going to hurt anybody. I'm not going to take anybody out. That All-Star game's, it's broke, man.
Well, I agree.
mean, like, people just, like, not running. Everybody just trying all kinds of.
Well, I'm not.
It used to be when Kobe and Michael and Isaiah, those guys were playing, man. I mean, they weren't playing the way they did regular season, but they wanted to win.
This sounds like a conversation with my pops right now. He gave me the same speech.
It insults the game.
That was depoy level defense from Barack Obama.
I want to ask all of you, does it not make sense to you that the social media generation of star in this game would get lectured by Obama and be like, no, I don't have to play this like daddy and granddaddy did. I'm getting my money. It's guaranteed. Embiid's telling you now, no more backs-to-backs. The rest of my career, I'm out. Like, he's being investigated for this. Silver's got to beg these players to try their hardest and risk injury during the regular season because they've made the regular season not matter.
Right. Isn't that sort of the argument that everyone would complain if the stars weren't playing in the playoffs, and that load management is a way to hopefully mitigate some injuries during the regular season so that doesn't happen?
I'm not sure what the solution to this is, but I saw a graph that said if with the new TV deal, the way these salaries are going, in 10 years, the max salary is going to be at $120 million a year. I'd try to stay healthy, too.
There are many criticisms that I have been hit with over the last 2 or 3 years, and most of them are fair. I'm not even going to object to most of them. One of them has been that I am too prisoner of the moment, not unlike my father, who spent my entire childhood, and I'm mortified whenever I see my father in the mirror, saying something, anything. He would say, I've never seen anything like that in my life. And it would be of anything. And it was just an overreaction. So I've been doing more and more of that lately. But last night, while I recognize that no one will remember Kennesaw State beating Liberty as anything memorable outside of the people who believe in Kennesaw State, as far as upsets go in college football, an 0-5 team beating a 5-0 team, a team I've heard of in Liberty because they're good at football, and a team in a program I haven't heard of because they started their program very recently, Kennesaw State beating Liberty by that point total.
You've heard of Liberty because of football, huh?
I've heard of it for other reasons as well.
1776 for one.
Liberty, I know of Liberty's politics and in general of its school getting into football because Hugh Freeze was in a press box in a hospital bed because it was important for him to be coaching football at the top of the game.
Incredible visual. The best.
I'm telling you, that's why these colleges get into the football game, because it brings their school name.
They also occasionally sponsor the 24 car.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you.
Aggies did with Briscoe as well.
I appreciate you wearing the gearhead when you say it. All gearhead information should come with the gearhead on.
But when Miami Speedway this weekend, Tyler Reddick must cook.
Not all information.
Dan, everyone's going to remember this Kennesaw State win. Everyone in the history of the world, because they did the college football world a favor last night. Undefeated Liberty would have been a problem that the playoff committee would have had to deal with at some point. And they lost. And now we don't have to worry about them sneaking into the playoffs.
So thank you to Kennesaw State. And forgive my ignorance on Kennesaw State. But what I wanted to just ask you guys more generally
They're the Fighting Owls, Dan.
Thank you. They're Fighting Owls.
They had a turnover plank, Dan. They had a turnover plank, and it was the talk of the town. It was what put Kennesaw State football on the map in 2017. I swear to you, the turnover plank was a thing that all college football fans remember from 2017. Hugh Freeze is the thing that they remember from 2019. I can't even remember what year that was. It was quite a moment for him. But the turnover plank, Dan, this team, the school, Kennesaw State. I played soccer there once. I know where Kennesaw is. It's right outside of Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia.
Wait a second.
Great soccer fields.
Former Intercontinental champion Braun Breaker played running back for Kennesaw State.
That's true.
And you know his father, Rick Steiner, the dog-faced gremlin.
Roy, Tony, I felt like that may have been misinterpreted. I don't know if Jessica knows why you guys were cackling with laughter
it was very
while not
I
listening.
apologize.
Now, look, you guys are great at doing shows that interrupt others from doing the show well. It's the opposite of how all of this should work. But Tony and Roy were not laughing to be disrespectful and not listen to you, Jessica. They were laughing because video kept putting Hugh Freeze's face closer and closer on the screen.
He was
while
interviewed while on the bed with an ESPN mic in front of his face.
Like he was dead.
Amazing.
So nobody was listening to what you were saying in here because they were distracted by the visuals. Admittedly, some of the greatest visuals of all time, at the risk of being prisoner of the
The
moment.
score is 24-0.
Dino Babers is pointing up at him, and Hugh Freeze is accepting.
Look, there are a number of things funny about this visual. One of them is that Hugh Freeze thought Liberty football was so important and that he was so important that he had to go up in a press box in a hospital bed. What do you have, a staph infection or
Gurney.
something? So he's doing that, but his play calls are so important. Look, this is funny visually. Just because, of course, hospital bed, football game, it's not that important, coach. But when you then see the score of the coach on the field is saying, way to go, Hugh, you're the toughest, and pointing up to the sky, and Hugh has 0 points.
Huge.
It's the automatic thing that you post when someone makes one of those posts that's like, you have to be sick to be watching Conference USA on a Wednesday night in October, and then you repost with that. Because you're like, yes, I am a very sick man, and I'm watching Kennesaw State, who has never beaten an FBS team. They were completely winless all season, and Liberty undefeated. We know FIU. our precious FIU, Florida International.
Did you
University,
go?
our local
You
team.
went
The
and saw
traffic
you to
was
support Billy?
So bad, Dan. I stayed home, but they almost knocked off Liberty in overtime last week, and so we knew this Liberty team. I mean, Caden Salter's good. Don't get me wrong, and I will add, Liberty, they should have won this game. They penalized themselves out of winning this game. Like the penalties are what made them lose. They should. Jamie Chadwell. Oof, that's gonna be tough tape to watch.
I appreciate that you have been infected so much by college football that we will hear later in the show from you and Lucy and GenCFB all of the ways that you've been poisoned by college football that would make you, as the NBA season starts, watch Liberty against Kennesaw State because of the sickness, the disease that you have inside of you as it regards college football. The thing I wanted to ask the group is, what represents Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame?
I have a disease, and you were watching the Heat last night.
Oh, wow.
Different diseases.
Get his ass.
I was watching the Heat last night with all of my sick friends. We were in the leper colony together. You were alone watching Kennesaw State. But
I got the booster, apparently.
What I want, you've got now. You're done.
Lucky.
One of the things that I wanted to ask all of you, though, what does represent the greatest college football upset ever? Like, if I ask you in sports, throughout sports, I feel like you can do this with the other sports. And I'm not saying that last night was one of them. No one will remember that way. But a 4-touchdown dog, winless, winning against a program that they knocked out of the playoffs, or a playoff argument, it's not a small upset.
So historically, Appalachian State at the Big House beating Michigan, which was highly ranked and had national title aspirations that year. I think according to Spread 2, there was a crazy straight-up win that Stanford, led by Jim Harbaugh, had over the Pete Carroll-led USC Trojans. I think that spread was
Appalachian
in the 40s.
State was like a
41 points.
41. Yeah, okay.
The Stanford USC was 41 points.
Same in
That was
Appalachian
what I
State,
thought of
Michigan, I thought.
first. Yeah, App State I think is probably the one that people will tell you first, but Stanford USC was a spicy meatball.
I would argue that the 8th-seeded Miami Heat, going all the way to the NBA Finals, is probably a bigger upset. I feel like we
Not
should talk
college
about
football,
that some
is
more.
it?
Not
no, I
wrong
know,
sport.
but it reminded me of Jeremy a little bit, and I feel like we should talk about the Miami Heat because you kicked him out a long time ago and he hasn't been back.
Okay, we will get to that in a second because I think I've asked them to make a spin room for us, and sometimes this can be hard to do on a moment's notice. So we will get to Jeremy in a second. But were you pouting because you didn't get to talk more Kennesaw State?
They stormed the field twice. They stormed the field, and then the refs were like, wait, there's a second left. And everyone had to leave. And this stadium only fills like 10,000 seats, and it was not full. But then everyone had to leave the field, and then they came back, Dan. They came back. They re-stormed the field, just like Liberty fans stormed.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Who cut off my mic?
Correct me if I have this wrong, because I don't know if I do or not. Appalachian State as a memorable upset, it's memorable because it was first, right? If Appalachian State did that now, we now know that the Coastal Carolinas and all these teams are a lot better, and the point spread wouldn't be 40 anymore if those games happen now, because we know that these mid-tier teams or these low-level teams can actually go in and surprise one of the big programs, because, hey, there's James Madison scoring 50 at the half against North Carolina. Wasn't Appalachian State just first? It's not that if we go back and re-legislate that, it wouldn't be the upset anymore. It was just people were ignorant about how these mid-tier schools, how good they were getting
That was
fast.
an FCS team at the time going to an FBS opponent that was preseason ranked top 10 easily.
But didn't they put scares into other programs after that and even
Yeah,
win?
Yeah,
now,
it
and now
became
they're-
their thing.
Now they're in the Sun Belt, and like it's a pretty solid football program. So, I think for Kennesaw State, it's what's going on.
Something fell in here. The Meadowlark media is falling apart.
No, it's just me. It's just me. My phone is always in my lap, and then it just falls down, and it's just my fault.
He
And
got
I'm terrible at
distracted
this.
by his
And I
phone.
got
All right, let me
distracted
kick
by
him
your
out
phone.
real quick here.
Does
Maybe
Jeremy
he
have bangs?
Go good with Jeremy. Go with Jeremy. I'm gonna get. Let me see
Do
here.
a spin class?
Hold
This
on
is
a
quite the
second.
penalty.
I didn't say it
Got
was
an
a
injured
spin
knee.
class yet. I haven't revealed that to the audience yet. It's just a spin room. God damn,
Have you
is
guys
he?
done Soul Cycle? We've never got into it.
Just
I've done
is
it.
he? Get out of
Do
here.
you like it?
Yeah. I got really
Major
tired.
penalty, 5 minutes, swooning
Doesn't
comedy.
make
And then I couldn't play it back to back.
See you later.
He's telling everybody it's a spin class before we've gone to the spin room.
Well, I mean, it's an established bit, Dan.
It is not an established bit.
Oh, we did it one time.
This is how not established it is. I just got told that it wasn't working up in the gym area at the Elser. Jeremy pilfered a cycle. He's in the green room right now. He stole this from the gym.
We don't use pilfered enough.
Jeremy, go ahead. We go to the Miami Heat spin room where Jeremy is going to tell us why the Orlando Magic are not actually better than the Heat and haven't passed them in the conference already.
Dan, I wouldn't quite say that. I think the proof is in the pudding. Sorry, I've been spinning for like 40 minutes. You sent me here a while ago. Why is Izzy here? Well, I think the real truth about last night's game is it doesn't really say anything about the Miami Heat struggles as much as it says, hey, the Orlando Magic have arrived. Paolo Banchero in last night's game, Dan, 30 points and 10 rebounds with no turnovers and being plus 40 in a game. That never happened since they started tracking plus minus. He was dominant. They're dominant. A game where Franz Wagner and Gary Harris shoot like that from three. Nobody's going to beat the Orlando Magic like that, Dan. So I think it's just time to pump the brakes a little bit on the, oh man, the Heat are washed thing.
Jeremy, I don't feel like the resistance on that bike is strong enough. I feel like you're over breathing for something that's very easy to pedal.
No, I'm sweating a lot. As you can see, the sweat is just pouring down from the rooftops even. It's a lot of sweat from the instructor.
All right. The Miami Heat last night, why is it not the apocalypse?
It's not the apocalypse, Dan, because they have, they have a new offense that they're trying to run. And Jesus Christ.
Is that bleach he's spraying in his face? Because I don't think we have just water
The
bottles.
velocity it's coming out with, too, is
I
impressive.
can't believe the sweat coming off of the people in front of me. This is a really intense spin class, Dan. The resistance is clearly there.
Why isn't it the apocalypse?
It's not the apocalypse.
20 seconds left.
Because Khalil Ware and Pella Larson are plus 99 per 48 minutes, Dan. The rookies are here. They've arrived. And you're never going to see a game. Mark my words, the rest of the year, you will not have another game where Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler combine 2 for 13 from the field.
What's that in your hand?
That was very natural, Mike, but I'm excited about this. It is a coloring book meant to celebrate our 20-year anniversary. We've always prided ourselves around here on having a different artistic look, and I like some of the pictures here. There is Roy and Mike as Riggs and Lethal. What is it? Thank you.
Actually, we can't use them to sell this book, so don't say their names.
Okay, I bleep that all out. I also have Amin here falling in American.
Can't say that either.
Greg Cody is wearing a...
that you can say.
Okay, thank you.
Well, maybe.
Is that the LSU one or no?
Wait, what is he wearing?
He's wearing that Zar...
Can't say that.
Can't
Strike
say
that from the
either.
record.
Okay. There is
Stugotz,
his guy...
You cannot say
you
his
can't
name.
say it. No.
That mayor of Flavortown, Dan.
That book is so much thicker than Stugotz's book.
LeBatardAF.com. It's a lot of fun. I urge you to check it out. The Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz, struggling mightily to try to keep the book industry alive in this country by selling a whole lot of books.
Went from 0 books to like 14 books in a year.
I know. We weren't doing any books, and then all of a sudden Mango Publishing started sniffing around the oil wells over here.
We got a lion book, we got a coloring book, we got a this, that.
Dan, when are you going to write a book?
It's an excellent question. The most I'm doing right now is coloring book is what I have for you. LeBatardAF.com.
And forwards.
I would have to leave what we're presently doing in order to do that. It's time consuming.
Don't leave.
If you could write a book about any topic, what would it be?
It's the book I've been trying to write for 25 years that I will tell people about when I'm ready to have the burden of expectations of having to write it.
When is it going to be ready?
Burden of Expectations.
Burden of Expectations is a great book. Yeah, that's a good title.
Can you give us a fake answer for the sake of the show?
I have
forward?
pages all over the house that I've come back from a time when you would have pages to write on, as opposed the pre-computer. It's all over the place. It's gone from house to house. There is a book. There's a smattering of a book.
You have a manuscript.
No, but its pages are everywhere. Some are in
Sci-fi?
storage. It's not a manuscript. It's not a manuscript.
Were you the
sci-fi?
guy on the typewriter during Tua's press conference?
That is a mystery we need to get to the bottom
Izzy,
of.
you laugh, but I think that you started with something like couplers, like you're 10 years younger than me, but you are also pre-internet when you started this.
Well, I knew that I was the young guy in the crew when I was a young reporter, when all the other reporters were calling their computer their machines. Oh, my machine. I was like, what are you talking about?
There's been one thing that I've picked up from the oral history, and that is very clearly Dan does not know when the internet started.
I feel like it was about 2004.
Wow. No. What were you doing for 10 years?
We were talking about the Heat, and he stopped short of the most recent episode. He's like, I'm not going to say it was pre-internet, but it was pretty close. I'm like, what?
When
I had a YouTube page.
When did Facebook start? Doesn't it feels like pre-Twitter? When do you regard as the beginning of the internet? Because there's a famous clip of Bryant Gumbel on the Today Show, the most popular show in America, saying, "What is this internet thing?" And I think that's early 90s that show is existing. So what do you guys regard as the advent of the internet? Because I really do sort of think of it as whenever it is Twitter started. I know it's before that.
Wow. Really? No, you've got mail.
I know
you have an AOL.
I wasn't on Facebook and I wasn't on Instagram. Like I wasn't doing that
When
stuff.
I was in
It's
high
internet
school.
pre-social media.
You had an AIM. You had an AIM account. You were
I should be
welcomed
saying
with you've
pre-social
got mail.
media is what I should
That's
be
what you should
saying.
be
That's
saying.
what I should be saying.
That's exactly
95?
Thank you for the correction.
Al Gore invented it.
Yeah.
But this is one of the ways that I age out. Here is another, and I am right about this. I will not be wrong about this. This is something I would say this has been my number one cause over the last 3 years and the cause that I am absolutely most right on. However, I sound like this person and I look like this person when I do it.
I buy some strawberries and I'm offering exactly the right amount of money here. So you people take that money and I will take my strawberries outside. I paid by legal tender.
No, don't break it down. Do not break it down.
I paid by legal tender and I am going out with my strawberries. I paid by legal tender in this dystopian place.
Hey, in a wheelchair.
You want one, mate?
Arrest him. I dare you. Take that to arrest. He paid by legal tender. You will take his coins and you will let him leave with his strawberries.
The biggest life hack is having an English accent.
Exactly.
Because if that were a Southern accent, he'd sound crazy.
Yeah, Dan started off by saying, I sound like that gentleman. You sound nothing like that gentleman. I don't care what he complains about. I'm on his side. Give that man his strawberries.
You know how crazy you would sound if you were trying to barge through automatic doors saying, I've paid my legal tender?
I regret so much that I have not yelled that. For those of you not watching video here, and everything we just did is much better when supplemented not just by his accent, but the way that he looks and everything that's happening there. A man tried to pay for strawberries with coins. And they say, we don't take coins here. We do not want your coins. He threw them all on the table and then barged out of the grocery store. And he had the perfect sentence, which I wish to repeat over and over again. I regret that I have not made a public show of this and gotten arrested yelling, I've paid my legal tender, because this man is right. He's on the right side of history and the law. That's God-earned American money, and he should be able to spend it in a restaurant or a grocery store to get his goddamn strawberries.
I don't know about God
I'm
earned,
going
but
to
it's
buy some
definitely.
strawberries and I'm offering exactly the right amount of money here. So you people take that money and I will take my strawberries outside.
You can't take that.
I paid by legal tender.
No, don't break it down. Do not break it down.
I paid by legal tender and I am going out with my strawberries.
The ovation he gets from the dude in the wheelchair.
In this dystopian place.
You should be able to spend wherever you want. This is an absolute joke.
You want one, mate?
It's the perfect.
Do you want one?
Do you want one, mate? It's the perfect phrasing for that scenario, Dan, because it's legal tender. You're telling them you have to take this by law. Get me out of here.
Absolutely right. And I am absolutely right. And in our cashless society, when you guys are going to give all the numbers over to Elon Musk and he's going to live on Mars with them, I will be down here on Earth, swallowed by flames and sea, with $1 in the air, shouting, I paid by legal tender. With my last dollar and my last breath, you will take my cash. You will not make me feel alone by having cash.
Do you have an aversion to credit cards? Is there something? Do you not like the?
It's not an aversion. It's the way that I've always done this, and I wish to be stubborn to the very end and stop with your wokeness.
Do you not like rewards points? Something you can't get with cash.
I like paying with cash. I like that baggage handlers at an airport, that I don't have to Venmo them, that they've lost their entire income because nobody gives them $10 anymore because nobody has $10 to give them.
Tipping industry. Huge blow.
Oh, my God.
Went to a cocktail reception, just got a drink. And
Why do you think that all service industry has gone to total shit? We used to give them money for their services.
Do you know where I got a tip request from on the little screen there where you're paying? A mechanic. A mechanic was asking for a tip.
You already ripped me off, buddy. You want more money?
Exactly.
I tip the mechanics.
What?
Oh, no, you
Since
don't.
when?
Yeah.
They have a labor fee.
My dad is not a manly man, and my dad always used to like fill his tires up because he had no idea how to do it. He would just drive up to an auto parts store or like a Jiffy Lube and be like, "Hey, can you put air in the tires? Here's like $2."
I mean, that's not really going to a mechanic. That's just tipping a dude for free work. Like
I've since stopped doing that and become a real man
with
a family of my own, paying legal tender.
I feel like everyone, like every nail salon I go to, every hair place I go to, they all accept Venmo tips. I tipped someone $2 yesterday on Venmo.
Are you doing much in the way of tipping valets that way? Because
I don't think I've ever valeted my car.
Wow. Yeah. Really? I tip drivers if the very fancy hotel provides a shuttle. I
anyone
ask
here
for a
tip
QR.
Uber drivers?
Absolutely.
Well, the app within
the
the app they allow you to do that, so that one's easy.
It improves your rating.
Back in my day, they paid him well enough where you didn't have to tip. That was the whole point of Uber. I don't have to tip
bait
the
and
guy.
switch, right?
And it's a bait and switch.
Bait
now
and
it's like,
switch.
hey, here's 37%. I got to pay the guy $40 more than my actual ride. Like, what are we doing?
They got us in the tent with no tips.
Whenever
And
there's
now they all
live
complain.
music, Mike, somebody always has their Venmo thing right there, and I always make it a point to stand, take the photo, and stand there while I tip, so everybody knows I'm tipping the performer. I'm not going to let those people with the dollar bills get away.
Yeah, I'm not just doing this for them to enjoy the
No,
tip.
it's
I'm doing this so people recognize that I'm kind and polite.
The better move is you go up and go to take a picture and then walk back and then never give the guy a buck.
Yeah.
And then people see, oh, this guy,
That's
knows what he's doing.
Stugotz. Stugotz has been pretending to be charitable.
Venmos himself.
The way that Stugotz does charity is, hey, does everyone see me doing charity? It's actual fraud. And then he walks away from that because it's what it is totally counterfeit. But he gets the credit without delving into his debit. He doesn't have to give any cash ever. You guys remember, most famously, I'd love to hear this in the oral history because as much as I've loved the oral history and hearing Mark Hackman again yesterday, with some people might not have context for what Mark Hackman was. There was a time in this show, Mike, what's the oral history reception been so far?
Overwhelmingly positive. I haven't really seen a criticism from a listener.
Just like our Michael Schmidt interview?
That has been the polar opposite. The only praise that I've heard of that interview has really been inside of this room, which I think speaks to a larger disconnect.
Michael Schmidt is going to be on with us again because I enjoyed
What?
doing
That's
that.
surprising. That's surprising because I thought he didn't enjoy his time, but he was pretty difficult to read throughout the interview. But I did listen back. For everybody that was here in the studio and listening along, they all kind of felt like Chris's line about stepson at the very end.
Oh, no.
At the very least, did not land.
I don't know. I think he gives off a little Iron Eagle, like he's just hard to read, but also just funny and dry. And so I don't know if he necessarily took offense to the Chris Cody.
He didn't take offense to much of anything. He's going to do an opening to a show for us at some point next week. He wants to do a sports radio show, but it was a bit awkward, and I did think the stepson comment was out of bounds, and I think that's where we lost him.
I don't know if I want to know. I do think I offended people in the YouTube chat by saying I tipped someone $2. It was a $10 service. That's 20%. I'm a good tipper.
That's
okay?
a great tip. That's a great tip. Yeah, it kind of felt like he was diminishing the relationship between a father and son just because he was the dad that stepped up.
God. Oh, no.
Dan, so I didn't hear the entirety of the interview. I heard like bits and pieces because I was here, but I was doing other work. This is the guy that said, "Are we done yet?" Is that guy?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. You gave him a shot because I was listening. You gave him a shot to like start up the first 30 seconds of a morning radio show. came out super flat. Didn't do it.
No, he wants to do it now.
No, I know
though,
he
is what
wants
I'm
to do it,
saying.
but he had his chance and he didn't do
That's
it.
a
You get
hard
asked on the
thing
spot,
to
you gotta
do
do it, man.
on the spot.
You want to be Mr. Johnny on the spot and come up with stuff to do?
I don't think he
do
wanted
it.
to be Mr. Johnny on the spot. I think you're projecting that onto him.
When somebody knocks on your
done?
door, sorry about that. When somebody knocks on your door and it's supposed to be Uber Eats and they leave at your door, right? You're supposed to leave it at the door, but they knock. Do you adjust the tip and knock it down? Because I do.
I altered the instructions. When I want them to knock, I say please knock, and when I don't want them to knock,
Do you
I-
ever want them to knock?
Never.
sometimes, yeah.
Really?
Sometimes
when do
I
you
want
want
them
them
to
to knock?
When my ring is down, and I'm like, I can't see the video here.
But when I order something, especially if it's a meal, I'm watching them for the entirety of their drive to my house to see how and then like I get notifications as they approach, which always sounds very threatening when they're like, this DoorDasher is approaching, and I'm like, oh, what is that?
Anthony usually
Weird
gives me a
term.
hard time because I like to peer out the window. I'm like, are you here yet? And then when they do knock on my door, I hate that so much. I make it as uncomfortable as possible. So I try to answer it before they go away in my underwear.
Are we done?
I want to understand from you guys a couple of different things that I don't totally understand. Earlier, Jessica, you whispered to me that Izzy acted with his ass off in the spin room that Jeremy created. I didn't see what Izzy was doing. What was he doing that made you say that he was acting his ass off?
There was a couple of cuties in that spin class.
Oh, I wasn't acting.
You
I
were
was
flirting. You were flirt. You were.
Did you get his number?
You were flirting, is what it is that you were doing while Jeremy did the
you
spin
see that
class.
yet?
What were you spraying in his face?
Me? That was the other spinners that were sweating profusely in front
It
of
was
him.
really unbelievable. Salty.
That as
Hey, yo.
as sweat is.
He's still a little wet.
Where is the strangest guy? Where is the strangest place that you guys would be willing to say you do tip that would make you a strange tipper? Because I think some people are having some disagreements. It seemed clear to me that what Tony was saying there is, I don't Uber tip. You guys were like, of course I Uber tip, and Tony's like, no, I thought that was what we were doing with Uber. You were cutting some of the costs for me. What Uber's actually doing is ripping off its drivers and taking way too much of the money, and so you would tip them because they're in the service industry. But Tony's saying, nope, not for me.
Well, I got guilted into tipping Uber Eats drivers and Uber drivers, but mostly Uber Eats drivers. And then I just started thinking about it. I was like, I can order from the same place over and over, and it's the same distance, and the only difference is the price. So if I'm extra hungry, why am I tipping more if this guy's doing or woman is doing the same amount of work getting it from point A to point B? So I don't do any percentages on Uber Eats. It's just a $3 or $4 tip every single time.
My strangest tip is that, like when they give you a check at a restaurant or somewhere else and the tip is already built in, I will tip on top of that tip.
Sucker.
Like a double full tip or just a
Not a
little
double
bit
full
more?
tip. I'll just give a couple extra percentage points.
But
So
don't
if it's
you
a
feel
built-in
weird, like
18,
putting in like a $3
we'll get to
tip?
20. If it's a built-in 20, we'll get to 22. Just, an extra few bucks. It makes me feel good, and I
And
also...
that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Because I pay cash, I would say that one of the strange places that I'm always leaving money is anytime I'm at the grocery store, I'm giving the cashier a tip. I don't think most people are doing that.
Are you going to Publix? Because you could be getting them fired.
I'm not going to Publix. This is at Whole Foods. But I also think those tend, especially in Miami, to be pretty terrible jobs, because people are rude. People just look past you. You're not a human being. I believe that the service industry has gone to because of the lack of cash in our environment that kept the service industry in a place where people would be less bad and care more about service. Am I wrong when I say that it's hard to get a human being on the phone to use a phone as a phone?
Well, that's
At this point,
capitalism.
aren't you guys annoyed when your phone acts as a phone and actually rings and asks you to answer it? You're annoyed at this point when your phone acts as a phone.
I come out the gates yelling representative, but that's not the service industry. That's
Talk to an
capitalism.
agent. Talk to an agent.
Agent.
So, Dan, are you proclaiming that you are some sort of superhero because you are still carrying cash and saving our
I
economy?
pay legal tender.
Yeah.
That would be my superhero slogan phrase.
Work on the accent.
I pay. Yes, the accent is better. I sound obnoxious instead of charming.
try it.
No,
But Dan, strawberries are a nightshade. Do you eat those?
you were close to getting me to do an impersonation there, Jeremy.
I was
but-
so desperate for your British accent.
Yes, I was
I
going to
tried to
do
save
it.
him.
No, but yes, thank you for saving me. I don't eat very much in the way of strawberries.
Good,
Oh.
because there's bugs in those things.
And
What?
pesticides and a
Oh,
bunch of
man.
stuff
Wait,
that you do
yeah,
do
not
that's why you
waste.
watch them.
Do you eat bananas?
There's bugs in strawberries?
Yeah, it's
They
gross.
hide.
Do you eat bananas?
I do eat bananas.
Those are strawberries.
Where are the bugs?
It's like in the little holes, and like
Inside.
if you actually wash it with a certain, I think it's vinegar and some sort of, you'll see
Baking
all the
soda, too.
disgustingness. I think it's baking soda. Yeah, you'll see all that stuff
little
come
water.
up. It takes forever. I think that's
rinse.
why Tom
We're
Brady
good.
doesn't eat strawberries. I'm not gonna lie. I think that's the
No,
reason.
I think it's an inflammation thing.
It's a pesticide thing
that's
too.
because he's eating all those damn pests.
You guys are just going to skip past Mike saying bananas are strawberries?
I don't even know what that means.
Okay, y'all just heard that and just kept it moving, decided to keep doing show, and you weren't stopped in your tracks by the idea that Mike just said bananas are strawberries?
I
Did
gave
any
it
of
a
you-
pause, and Mike didn't.
Did any of you hear that, understand it, what was happening there? Because he seems to think he's right, and the rest of us don't know what it even
Dan,
means.
people have
like
their
a
own
Dr.
set of
Capone on
facts
this
now.
one.
If that's Mike's facts, then those are his facts.
Okay, so bananas are berries. Bananas are berries.
Well, Mike, the other day you said that any boat with a bathroom in it is a yacht. So
Yeah.
I'm having trouble believing you these days.
Wait, you don't think that's true?
Which was
No.
untrue. It's a size thing.
Yeah.
No, it's you gotta have. A guy told me, bro.
Mike, you've been on my boat.
Do you have a bathroom?
Yeah. There's a room in the
Congrats
front.
on
and a
your
bucket.
yacht.
Wait, you have a bathroom in there?
Yeah.
You've been making me
Nobody's
swim the whole time.
Of course I have. Nobody's ever using that.
I had
thing.
my wiener out there twisting in the wind. I didn't know you had a bathroom in that thing.
That was not true, by the way. That was happening when we got pulled over while I was peeing on the back of the boat, literally twisting in the wind.
Yeah, bananas are berries.
Not
But strawberries aren't berries. So I got it. But yeah, still shocking. You eat a banana, you're eating a berry.
No, you were just wrong.
I was wrong.
That's why we moved on, Dan.
But why would he say that?
Well, that was an Uber fact on the old and finallys whenever Stugotz used to do sports centers.
Certainly there are things like this that are correct. Tomatoes are fruits, correct?
Yes, and
Yes.
bananas are berries.
No.
That's true. Bananas are berries. Strawberries aren't berries. Still a shocking fact.
Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Are bananas berries? At Le Batard Show. Because I don't believe that that's a thing that people think is a fact.
It's the internet, man. I don't know what to tell you. I don't think berries to me typically look like berries, not bananas. But, even Austin Powers said a twig and two berries. He's not saying three berries.
That's good fact there. That's a good way to support your argument, I think. I wanted to ask Izzy here before we move on to other NBA things. The thing that we were talking about as it related to load management and the problem of right off the bat at the top of a season as Obama's telling Halliburton, you guys need to try. You need to pretend to try. The season starts in Philadelphia, where they're trying to catch Boston, and Paul George and Embiid cannot play, and Embiid says he's not playing back-to-backs for the rest of his career. Zion Williamson does not play his first game. Adam Silver has already said, obviously, that this is a problem. What do you do as they head into this first season, or this season, first game of the season, the last couple of days? What do you do with the fact that already the conversation, one of the main conversations, is how hard are these people trying? How much do they actually care?
Well, I won't read too much into the Zion one. I feel like teams in the Western Conference in particular, because the conference is back to being really deep again, I don't think that they're taking regular season games off. I think if you look at the Eastern Conference specifically, there are 5 teams that you just kind of know are going to be terrible. And that leaves basically the rest of the Eastern Conference to at least be a play-in team. So you get yourself right at the end of the season. It doesn't matter what your seed is. You're going to trust that you're going to do okay. The problem I have with that is if you're the Philadelphia 76ers, what example do you have of this ever working? I already know, okay, the Sixers, no matter how they treat Joel Embiid, there's a 90% chance in the postseason he is not going to be able to play like his normal self. You can probably put a 50-60% chance of that on Paul George, who's also missing the season early after a hyperextension. And you're thinking, the 76ers are never going to get into a rhythm to be able to compete with the likes of the Celtics if they are healthy and doing well. So they kind of take the regular season and just, hey, I'll relax. When I can get it right, I'll rev up. And I think that's only possible because the bottom of the Eastern Conference is so bad that you have multiple teams that you don't have to worry about.
I think that Jeremy thinks that the most interesting thing in the Eastern Conference is what's going to make it into the play-in game as a 10 seed.
That's absolutely the most interesting NBA story this season. There's a chance, Dan, that a team loses 50 games and makes the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
There's a strong chance, because if you look at the Eastern Conference, and on behalf of the show, I will not include the Heat in this group. So you take 7 teams that you know are good in the East when you look at the Celtics, Knicks, Bucks, Cavs, Magic, Pacers, and Sixers. Then you have the Heat and the Hawks, who are going to probably be filling out what would be 8 and 9 of those 9 teams. Who is 10th? The Bulls are terrible. The Nets are terrible. The Raptors, the Hornets, the Wizards, the Pistons. One of those teams I just named is going to be a playoff team this season. That is the best possible storyline for the NBA, is the chase for 10 with the worst teams in the league.
Keep an eye on the Pistons this year. Keep a little eye on the Pistons
team,
this
just
year.
a little eye.
Keep an eye. Cade Cunningham is special, Dan.
No,
I want you to keep an eye on Cade Cunningham and the Pistons
No,
this
he's
year.
not, says Izzy.
No, he's not. I had this. I put this in the group chat last season. I said, Cade Cunningham, he's all right. He is not special. He doesn't have, I don't think he has the athleticism to be special. I don't think he has the shot making to be special. I think he's a good lead guard, might make an all-star game, but I don't think he is a number one on a team that's going to do much of anything.
We'll see.
Okay, that is the way to retort there. I also remember that once upon a time, this might be unsophisticated basketball analysis, but I remember once upon a time people were arguing that Tony Campbell was a special player because somebody had to lead the 9-win Timberwolves in scoring. Like, I
thought you switched to football there with that name. I do not even remember who that is.
I remember a Timberwolf leading scorer, a terrible, do I have the name wrong? There was a Timberwolf.
Kevin Martin?
No, before that.
Wasn't Bucket, by the way.
Kevin Martin
Kmart
was
Bucket.
always like in competition, be like a leading
But
scorer.
whoever was
Don't
the
sleep on
lead
him.
scorer for a terrible Timberwolves team almost got to 20 points a game inefficiently and fooled people into believing that he could be something somewhere just because someone on these bad teams in the NBA that team to 100 points the way they're playing basketball these days, shooting as many threes as they are. So people get fooled into thinking a number one on Houston or a number one, somebody who looks like a number one in Sacramento is an actual number one based
Tony
on what it
Campbell.
is.
Dan was right.
Wow.
What was so Tony Campbell put up a season with the Timberwolves.
This is shocking. More shocking than bananas being berries.
No, but correct me if I'm wrong on this. Don't we do this all the time with the bad teams? Tone.
Looter and a riot.
A lot of people are saying, I hear a lot of people trying to sell me on the fact that Cade Cunningham is someone special because someone's got to be good on a bad NBA team.
It's a battle of attrition, right? Like you look, that guy sucks, that guy sucks. This guy is somewhat good. He can lead this team to at least something, but he read all those teams and they're bad, right? Like he has an ability to score. I mean, he's not a great shooter, but he can get to the hole. Like he's good enough.
But the Pistons were the worst team in the league last year, weren't they?
Yeah, he didn't. I think he missed some games there. But if you look at Cade Cunningham and think, okay, he's a special player who can lead a team, what do you look at when you see LaMelo Ball, who's more explosive, more dynamic, has been in it for a few more years, has that desire to finally crack into the postseason? I see him as that guy who's going to break into probably the play-in and then just maybe have to win one game to get into the playoffs.
Tony Campbell led the 19 Minnesota Timberwolves with 1,903 points.
23 points per game.
Whoa. I wasn't a young boy at that time. How do I not know who this person is?
Roy is the first person in sports history to announce a basketball player's scoring totals instead of
weird.
average.
I was doing the math. I was like, what is that?
The internet wasn't even invented yet.
Why is David Samson already shaking his head as if he's filled with disgust? I could not hear because everybody was muted. It seemed like Adnan and David were passionately discussing something, enjoying each other's company. And then as soon as the cameras start rolling, I've got David Samson shaking his head sadly as if something bad has happened. Have we kept you waiting again? What is it that you're mad about today?
We've just been sitting here for 10 minutes watching you gesticulate vociferously on mute, and we wanted to start because we're both busy. The World Series starts tomorrow. We have a lot that we're doing, and we're here to talk about baseball, movies, whatever you want. But if you say 10:15, let's start at 10:15.
Adnan, you're nodding your head vigorously here. You're usually the reason that we're late here. Today is totally my fault. I don't enjoy being reprimanded by Samson, though, because I kept him waiting 10 minutes because I was just explaining something to Izzy over here that helps us do the show. I have to do this show.
First off, we're not late usually because of me. It was one time, and David Sampson was irate about that, which is why I was put in the penalty box. It's been 5 weeks since we've done this segment. The 3-minute man was upset. We've took care of it. This is on you, Le Batard. I'm with Sampson 100%. 10 minutes of my time. You know how much time I did? That's a lot of equity I have here when it comes to my time. You're explaining things with Izzy. Let's go. Come on.
You know what? I stand corrected. These two people are at the center, at the epicenter of a very important time in baseball. They are authorities on the subject of baseball. We were talking about tipping. And we were talking aggressively about tipping. So I want to ask you guys the opinion of this as I play it. Can you guys get me the legal
20%.
tender?
There's your answer. Tipping.
No. I've got a different question. I want to play a legal tender video for you two and ask where you two old people stand on this, because this old man walks into this place and he's paying for something in coins. These people are like, this is a cashless store, and he does not care. You tell me where you stand on this.
I'm going to buy some strawberries, and I'm offering exactly the right amount of money here. So you people take that money, and I will take my strawberries outside.
You can't take that.
I paid by legal tender.
No, don't break the door. Do not break the door.
No, don't touch.
I paid by legal tender, and I am going out with my strawberries. I paid by legal tender in this dystopian place.
You should be able to spend wherever you want. This is an absolute joke.
You want one, mate?
Where do you stand on this, Samson? Cash and cashless stores.
If they don't take cash, you can't pay with cash. Now, I love cash and paying with cash. I still carry cash, but there are more and more places that don't take cash.
David, why is it called legal tender? You have to take it, do you not?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Where's that written? That's not a rule.
I want to say the Constitution, but I know I'm wrong.
Businesses get to define currency however businesses want.
Businesses get to decide how they get paid, and you can choose not to do business with them. You can't just walk in with pennies for strawberries. If they don't take cash, they don't take cash. Go buy your strawberries elsewhere.
You have to laud this guy, David. He's a British Larry David. He's taking things to his own hands. He just wants his strawberries. I can appreciate the fact he was defiant about this and clearly aggrieved, because you and I know what it's like. We've been to stadiums. It says, sorry, it's cashless only. Come on, I've got cash. Cash is king. I miss that bygone era.
British Larry David, I think you're onto something there.
David, how can you take up on behalf? Well, you always do. Like, you're always taking up on behalf of the business. This seems wrong. Take my cash.
I'm just saying that you have the right to put whatever rules in place you want for whatever it is you're selling. You're not forcing someone to do business with you. I would never want to give up business. My view is I'll take anything anyone wants to give, from barter to cash to traveler's checks, because I'm trying to sell something. If you want to only take, it's like people who don't take Amex or Discovery. Right. Well, whatever. That's not smart, but that's the way you want to be. That's fine. So of course I'm taking the side of the company to decide, even if they're stupid.
But it makes me think of that scene in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. If Samson was in a situation like that, like John Candy and Steve Martin saying, I got $25 and a hell of a nice watch. And then John Candy says, I have $5 and a Casio watch.
David, you're saying that if I brought like a bag of like dried kidney beans to Marlins Park, you would let me go in lieu of paying for a ticket with cash? Like I could, you said you would allow bartering.
Bartering.
So I would personally, but no, working on behalf of the Marlins, kidney beans was not one of our accepted forms of payment. I would be happy to discuss with you the value of a kidney bean.
The Marlins should have taken anything of value they could have gotten.
They were dried. You can keep them forever.
You guys should have had dried kidney beans and resold them on eBay.
According to federalreserve.gov, there is no federal statute mandating that a private business, a person, or an organization must accept currency or coins as payment for goods or services.
Wow,
Private businesses are free to develop their own policies. I think the argument against it is that it's discriminatory because you're, weeding out people that can't get a line of credit.
Mm-hmm.
David is looking at you the way that Tony looked at David when he said traveler's check.
What is a traveler's check? What do you mean by that? So like
with a QUE.
I'm traveling and then I need a check to travel. What's the Dave? Can you break that down for me, please?
Have you ever seen Best in Show?
No.
Yes. How much do you think I can bench?
Let's
try to
just
pay
say
for
that
their hotel and traveler's checks.
When you have money, Tony, that sometimes people, if you're staying in a hostel, they could take your cash. So what you did when you would travel around anywhere, hostel to hostel, you'd have something called a traveler's check, which you'd go to the bank and get, and it's literally an American Express traveler's check, and you have to cash them at the point of transaction. And so it's not worth it to anybody. It's worth nothing, literally nothing, except for you. And with your ID, you can use it. So that's how people would travel as poor people around the country back a long time ago.
So you would get the check, and then you give them the ID, and then they're like, "Oh, you can use it. Why not just use a regular check then?"
Because checks take days to clear, and so nobody wants to take checks generally. Travelers' checks are immediate. They're automatic.
Adnan, why are
Same-day
you
clearance.
shaking your head? Because your time is valuable and people want to talk baseball?
Damn, we have an iconic World Series here. We got the Dodgers and the Yankees for the first time since 1981.
Tony
Or we
needs
can
to know
discuss
what
cinema,
traveler's
something
checks are
passionately
about.
Simpson. No, traveler's checks is what we're disseminating right now. This is what the country wants to hear.
It's a history lesson, Adnan. I needed it.
Tony, there was too much of a detour. Come on.
The problem with this generationally to me is you guys know what traveler's checks are, and when you come on here and mention planes, trains, and automobiles, Jessica and Tony shut down. They don't care about anything you have to say there. We have a generational divide between how it is you look, baseball's got a generational divide. You care about Dodgers Yankees because it reminds you of 40 years ago. I don't believe that Jessica and Tony care about Dodgers Yankees. I don't think it means anything to them historically.
Fernando Mania, come on, let's go. Reggie Jackson in 77, Game 6.
1977?
Yeah, that's right. You've seen the vintage video, Tony. Come on.
Dan opened it up to the group to say anything. And on the platform where most people are listening, all he got was like nothing. Crickets.
You guys,
pause.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you what's happening here in terms of the chemistry, just generally between this segment when you guys come on. You guys care deeply about something the young people here don't care about at all. Like, at all.
That's not true. Jeremy's into the baseball. Jeremy is very excited. The pitch clock, Yankees, Dodgers. Let's go, Jeremy. Take the floor.
You
Speak to
explain.
this young
No,
generation.
Adnan, explain to people why they should care about this World Series more than any of the other World Series, because this is hearkening to a time there were 3 internets. It was actually, 3 networks, and it was actually pre-internet. These were the most important games in America when the Dodgers were playing the Yankees.
Yes. First fall classic since 1956 to feature each league's home run champion. Okay, we're talking Mickey and Duke Snyder. First time ever, 2 teams with 50 home run hitters. First time since 2012, you've got respective MVPs facing off in Judge and Ohtani. Of course, that was Miguel Cabrera, Buster Posey. Dan, this was the matchup that I think baseball fans dream of, because back in the day, it was 12 Worlds. This is the 12th time we're getting this. Yankees-Dodgers. The Yankees hold the edge 8-3, and there are so many great memories, whether it's Sandy Koufax striking out 15 in 1965 or Reggie Jackson's home run game. This is what baseball's all about. Samson, come on, back me up. Let's go. Bring up a Ron Save reference.
Can't back you up because you're using examples of people no one's heard of. That's the worst sales job I've ever seen. Can I tell you how to sell this year's World Series?
Take 2. 5 of the 6 big 3 here are MVPs, and the 6th might be the best hitter in baseball in Giancarlo Stanton. Ohtani MVP, Betts, Freeman, Judge, Stanton, and Soto. Who wants better than that? 6 great players in the sport. Go ahead, David.
It's a great World Series, David. It's a great World Series.
It is rare that in any sport you truly get the best players on the biggest stage at the end of the season who are healthy and playing. It is rare that you get the 2 biggest markets to play each other in any sport at the end of the season. Of course, this matters greatly, not just to the business on the field, but for the interest off the field, where the ordinary fan, even if Jessica's not interested in this series, I promise you, if we get to a game 6 and a game 7, there will be a level of interest that even Jessica would say, oh, I actually will watch to see Ohtani. And she's going to shake her head, of course, and on character, on point, say, no, I won't. But I promise you that she will. and now just won't spite me. But the reason is that when you get deeper into a series, it raises the interest. And if you put stars in it, it makes it even better. So we have an opportunity in baseball to do something we haven't done in a really long time. And that's to get interest across all demographics, across all generations. And the hope is this is the time to do it for baseball.
Is there Maction that night?
One of the things we run into here is that Jessica didn't want her college football interrupted by Aaron Judge's historic at-bats. There's been a divide in how it is that people get into their silos on what they like. And in that time, baseball, I don't know if demographically it has lost young people because their advanced media is great, but they do have an opportunity here. If these are not 10-4 games, they have an opportunity with some drama and Game 6 and a Game 7 to really get a lot of eyes that baseball hasn't had in a while, Adnan. Not like transcendent eyes. All sports fans are interested because you've got the giant, famous, sparkly things playing against each other.
Yeah, back in the day, Dan, as you said, when there was 3 channels, you had 40 watching the World Series in the late 70s, early 80s. It's a different generation. Last year, Rangers D-backs drew 8 million. But this year, you're going to get double digits. Like David said, these are 2 of the biggest markets, New York, LA. You're going to get hate watchers, okay? People hate the Yankees. They hate the Dodgers. Great. People hate David Samson. They watch this segment. So there's nothing wrong with a little bit of animus going a long way. These are popular teams. They're also loathed teams. And it's going to make for great, compelling action.
Jessica, why are you making faces?
What was that shot at David Samson in the middle of that?
Yeah, that was uncalled for.
My question is, what if
it wasn't
you
uncalled for?
What if you hate both teams? Who am I supposed to root for if I don't like the Yankees or the Dodgers?
You want colossal injuries all over the place.
Jeez.
You're like Freddie Freeman's Hobbit. Let's see how bad this thing can get.
Colossal injuries. That's not what we want to be doing here. Samson, you don't need to actually manufacture sales on this one. You're as excited for this as a baseball series since blank.
Since Marlins, Yankees in 2003.
Only because you were involved, but just as a spectator that you're not involved in, this would be as perfect for baseball as anything could be. That
since the Cubs in 2016 and the Red Sox in 2004. Because anytime you have a curse that's been broken or a big team that has not won in a long time, that generates a bunch of interest. So I would put those up there. But this one, the 2024, with Ohtani being in the playoffs for the first time and him having the type of year he's had with Stanton hot and Judge and Soto on the Yankees, there is no scenario under which you've had a more star-studded matchup that anyone can remember in their lifetime, assuming they're under 50 years old.
If Ohtani was going full Shohei here and actually pitching in the series and hitting, then you got me. But I've seen 2 really good teams against each other before.
But what you do have the chance of having in this series, okay, the way that Ohtani struck out Trout in that World Baseball Classic is so many cool storylines on Soto headed to free agency. They're going to have to pay him because he's the guy I fear most somehow, even though Aaron Judge is obviously a beast. And Ohtani has the chance to be better than like 3 legitimate baseball giants physically. Stanton, Judge, and I think Soto's like the best hitter, plate discipline you've seen since Ted Williams. He's got a chance to slay 3 giants in New York and be an international hero when he does it.
Well, Ohtani already is that, Dan, and baseball put a lot of resources behind Ohtani in this postseason, a lot of money spent overseas, and it's paid off already with the interest that Japan has had in this World Series. And the Game 2 starter is another Japanese player who got $300 million, Yamamoto. And so there's just all sorts of interest across all the different countries. So you're going to see a lot of press releases coming out from New York and Major League Baseball about all of the increased interest and ratings and numbers, and there will be great spin, great positivity.
Honestly, this series is, if you want to put it in another sports perspective, you take Steph's Warriors, you take LeBron's Heat or Cavs, you make them the Lakers and the Knicks, and that's what you have here for the World Series, because you have those markets and those level of teams and stars and transcendent stars that define a generation here in Ohtani and Judge alongside multiple other MVPs and superstars. That's the comparison you can make, is those 2 teams going head to head, but it's New York and LA.
Had to bring the Heat into it.
Okay, I think I'm in. I think I'm in. I can't guarantee it. I can't guarantee
Tony's
it.
in.
But I think I'm in.
Let's go.
I think I'm in. I'll watch.
I think I'm in too. When does it start?
Tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow.
I got a thing.
Yes.
Wait.
Saturday we got MMA too.
Friday night is Rutgers at USC.
Oh no.
Rutgers, the Scarlet Knights.
It's actually after, Jessica. It's a doubleheader, I believe.
No,
I
I
believe
think
the
they're the
World
same
Series
time.
goes into the Rutgers USC game.
We're back. Jess is in.
What is the single greatest storyline? Give me one and only one. You can only give me one storyline. Which is it?
I'll give you Judge, Dan, because he has not performed well so far. He's hitting 161 in this postseason. He has a 704 OPS. That's league average. It's rare to say the Yankees are the underdogs, but I believe that they are. The Dodgers are favored to win this World Series, and Judge is yet to be judging. He's going to be a 2-time MVP. He's a Rookie of the Year. He's a 6-time All-Star, but he hasn't had a signature moment aside from that home run off Clase in Game 3. So if the Dodgers win, they probably should win. But if Aaron Judge doesn't step up, I think Yankee fans will be pretty upset.
David?
The biggest storyline for me is Shohei Ohtani and how recently we were dealing with a big gambling scandal that got swept under the rug so quickly back when this season started in Korea. And he has a chance to end that season winning a World Series, his first time in the playoffs, first time getting postseason at-bats, and he has been a beast with runners in scoring position, hitting at a historic level, like 17 out of 21 times he's getting a hit. And if he actually gets the MVP and has the commissioner's trophy, he is the #1 face of baseball in the entire world, and then backs it up with performance. That does not happen every day.
Both of you agree with me that Soto's the best hitter on the Yankees?
Pure
Yeah,
hitter?
I mean, yeah, I was about to say Stanton. Listen, his numbers have been great. 794 slug in 9 games this postseason. Every time he's there, he's hitting it. He's got the 4th longest drought, by the way, of any position player to make the World Series. So his at bats are must see TV, Dan, because anytime he can go deep. But yes, pure hitter. Soto in terms of getting on base, plate discipline, and that power. Cliff Floyd said to me, nobody's better at hitting an elevated fastball than Soto. 95 up in the zone, and somehow Soto can take it downtown with a pitch like that. No one can do that.
I loved his at bat so much. Just the fact that he seemed you're in agreement that the at bat to end that Guardian series was an all timer when Aaron Boone's the one saying it, when he's saying an at bat for the ages, just because you kind of knew that Soto was stalking him. He was timing him the entire time. It was like watching a cat play with a bird it had injured.
So that's what Soto does every at bat. He's known for that, and in that particular at bat, Cliff Floyd's right, Uncle Cliffy, or that's not Uncle Cliffy, just Cliffy said that he did take the high fastball, and that's
Who's
just because
Uncle
he hit
Cliffy?
the home run.
Who's
Cliff
Cliff
Robinson.
Oh, okay.
Cliff Robinson.
Yes. Good work, David. Good talking
Thank
to
you,
you.
I only had 3 questions.
See you guys later. It was nice talking to you.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, everybody, it's Mike Ryan, and I want to tell you about 2 of my favorite things, football and Miller Lite. And when you combine the 2, that makes for one heck of a Miller time. See, Miller Lite has great taste, but is also less filling. And football, well, it's just spectacular from start to finish. You put those 2 things together, you've already carved out a perfect day. Miller Lite keeps things simple with undebatable quality, great taste, and only 96 calories. It's a beer that strips away everything that you don't need and holds on to what matters most. A light beer that actually tastes like beer. Make your game time taste like Miller time. Tastes great and is less filling. Let it be both. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/Dan. Or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
All right, it is time for Thursday Thunder, which is brought to you by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Mike, take it away.
Hit me with another spare, Roy.
I don't think Roy's enthusiasm is what it needs to be to, like, this is a sponsored segment. We're in a contract year. Roy sounded somewhere between bored and indifferent as Jessica ate. I'm just saying.
Thank you.
We're
I like the dark lipstick too.
We're in a We're in a contract year.
I think Dan gets that joke.
Yeah, you got it.
We're in a I shouldn't have broken character. We are in a contract year, and I need enthusiasm for these sponsored gambling segments.
Thursday Thunder is brought to you by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Mike, take it away.
Thank you for your enthusiasm there because this one needs it because, look, hey, it's a good game. It's a solid game, but there are a lot of variables here that aren't conducive to making this segment happen in the morning. So there's a lot of questionable dudes out there. Like TJ Hawkinson, is he going to play? Cooper Kupp, is he going to play? That kind of changes things. So we really scoured the props available here on DraftKings Sportsbook, and this is what we cooked up at plus 500, a 3-pick parlay. We're going to Marcus Robinson over 26.5 yards receiving.
Who's he play for?
The Rams.
Okay.
Pretty sure he's a Ram. Then we're going Tutu Atwell over 37.5 yards receiving. And to close this, I told you this is a doozy.
Why are you laughing, Tony? Are
Because
it was hard. It was
not
hard.
not only was it difficult, if Cooper Kupp does end up playing, and if Puka Nacua, who's also questionable, ends up playing, then we're kind of cooked.
Kind of cooked.
But we don't know yet because it hasn't been released.
But the good
yet
thing
if
about
they're playing or
Tutu
not.
and DeMarcus Robinson is all you need is one play.
Right.
With those guys. They usually stretch the field. And finally, in closing, Jalen Naylor, 25 yards or over receiving.
You love Naylor.
I barely know her.
You've been betting Naylor all season. You love prop bets. It seems to me you've been doing well on prop bets.
Been doing all right. The super followers have been eaten. Not as well as Jess, but eaten.
Jessica looks like she has put together a very nice breakfast, lunch, healthy. Is there some avocado in there?
There
That seems
is
gluten-free.
some salmon.
Yes, that seems you've put together all the right combinations. I wanted
Gluten-free avocado.
I wanted to ask. That's not the gluten-free part. The gluten-free bread is what she's doing there on the avocado toast. The thing that I wanted to ask you guys, because Izzy just knocked me. Izzy knocked me off of my center the moment that he decided to answer the door in his underwear. I don't understand why he's doing that. And so, like,
Can we tell people that I didn't actually answer any door here in my underwear? I just do that to the Uber Eats who knock on my door.
You a boxer briefs guy or a briefs guy?
Depends.
It seems to me like
You're the depends guy. Wow.
Diapers. Option C.
It seems to me like that should be a crime to answer the door in your underwear when an Uber driver is approaching.
Not if you're put together like this guy.
No, I think that makes it even more criminal, I would say, not less criminal. The thing that I wanted to ask you guys is this: are either of these things happening to you right now? Are you, and I don't know which one might be happening worse, are you getting inundated more by political texts that are just burying your phone, or invitations to join class action suits?
No, it's the political text. It's the silly season right now, so it's just flooding in.
Yeah, and it's not ones that I typically agree with because I'm still a registered Republican. So the way that I scream representative I scream in caps stop. But I have joined a class action lawsuit as well, and I got quite a hefty little payout on one.
I had a thought yesterday that I was early voting. What if you could opt out of all political ads and text messages if you early voted? Because we're going to have a couple more weeks of this. And right now, doesn't affect me anymore. I'm not changing my vote. It's too late. Dan, also, Willow's crying because she wants my smoked salmon. My friend received a hefty payout from a class action lawsuit settlement with JUUL last week. And
the singer?
The vapes that were accused of marketing themselves to
I was going to say, because she lived in
Yeah.
her car for once. That's kind of sinister.
I get emails from random law firms sometimes telling me to sign up for a class action lawsuit that, I got one for a software company a few weeks ago. And my thought is always, well, I've been conditioned my whole life to not reply to these emails in case they're phishing emails, right? Because how would they have gotten my email address? And I don't want to give them my information and all this. But my friend got $600 last week from JUUL.
Whoa.
Wow.
And I saw some people got $3,000. Now, those people were probably using a lot of JUUL pods. But that's a not insignificant amount of money.
I got a streaming service that I signed up for. I'll protect these people. I won't say it. It was Shudder. And they had they use your data for something that wasn't disclosed in the terms. And I vetted the email. I Googled, is this a real thing? And it was like, join this class action lawsuit. I'm like, well, I don't like them giving up my data for something that I didn't say they could have my data for. So I opted in. Several months later, got a payout. $8.64 direct deposit.
So with the class action lawsuit, I'm just trying to do some mental math here. Do you have to prove that you smoked JUUL? Do you have to have receipts? Like, what's the deal with that? Can I join even though I didn't smoke them and be like, I need it for sure?
I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I think they perhaps identify customers prior to the settlement, and then you're like eligible for it if you've purchased it.
What if I bought in cash? No trace?
Legal tender.
It's the same thing with the Meta class action lawsuit. That was $725 million that people signed up for, and it's been delayed. The payout has been delayed.
But that's what I'm always thinking when I see these things. It's like, I'm going to get a $5 check. I don't need to go through with this. I don't want my name to be involved in something. But Jess's friend, was it Charlotte?
Priya.
Jess's friend, Priya, excuse me. I don't know what the amount was. Did you say the amount?
$600. And
$600?
according to the New York Times, if you didn't have a receipt, your recovery was capped at $300. That's still a lot of money.
Free $300 there, Dan.
I want to be friends with the person that kept a receipt for a JUUL they got several years ago.
I think that we have more commonalities than we think in a divided America. And I think that these things I'm about to say are so, okay? I think we all sort of react to class action invitation suits that way, which is with skepticism. Are they trying to get my information? What's happening here? Should I join? Maybe not everyone is skeptical about this, but there's so much happening right now in content consumption and what people reach you. They have all of your information. They want more of your information. I also think another place that we have a connection point, you tell me if I'm wrong about this because it came up earlier, the 7-day trial now that streaming services have. No matter your amount of money, you're hesitant to check in on the 7-day trial because you don't trust yourself to cancel within 7 days, and you're a little scared that too many people are bombarding you from too many different ways trying to get your $9.99. And I think we all have this stuff in common as humans, and I think we need to concentrate in these next 12 days especially on the places that we have in common as humans.
Stugotz has to be an expert on that trial situation. He knows exactly when to get out of there.
I think this is the only reason for calendars to still exist. You have to mark it down when you had started your free trial and when you have to cancel it. I'm a fan of ordering and canceling immediately, but even then sometimes I forget. So you've got to mark it down. I believe one time I realized I was paying for Showtime for like 6 straight months, and I was like, dang it, I missed that one.
I bought a TV recently, and Best Buy did this thing where, like, if you bought a TV online, you can get Apple TV for 3 months for free. You just have to sign up for it. And I was like, oh, perfect. I can watch Bad Monkey. Like, there's a couple new shows, Slow Horse, I want to get into. But the problem is that was like 2 months ago. I didn't write down exactly when I needed to cancel.
That's how they get you.
So now I'm like, damn, they have all my information because I have an iPhone and, like, everything's hooked up through my Apple ID. I don't exactly know when to cancel. So I don't know if I should cancel it now and just get rid of it, or actually get into the shows, be able to watch it, and then cancel.
Well, can we start a class action lawsuit against Apple TV? Because Mike informed me the other day that MLS is now free with the Apple subscription. I've paid for that damn thing for 2 seasons now. I'm pretty sure for this season
we're
as well.
a content company. We really can't be suing anybody. In fact, I just cooked a doc I was trying to pitch to Shudder.
I did see that the FTC was trying to create a new rule that it would be easier to cancel things.
One click, yeah.
Yeah, click to cancel. So if you had a gym membership, have you guys ever had to go through leaps and bounds to cancel a gym membership?
Why would you cancel a gym membership?
Because you move out of the state. Izzy, Mr. Pumping Iron all the time.
That's why you get the national change.
Mr. Soul Cycle, date
Mr.
goer.
answers the door on Uber drivers in his underwear.
We get
Knock
it.
on my
You
door,
are
man.
strong. We get it. You have big muscles. We get us. Show us your belly button.
I want 2 questions for you guys to answer here. I want to know what it is that will what will tempt you enough to ignore your disorganization and calendars and sign up for the 7-day trial because, damn it, I have to see that now and I cannot wait, and I don't want my access denied because one of the key things in sales is deny people something they really want, make it something and they'll want it more.
And that's how you pay for Panthers Plus.
And that's how you get stuck with that stuff. And also, and harder to come by, and it's why newspapers are dead, what's an article that makes you need it so much that you're gonna subscribe behind a paywall.
I just did it today.
Did you?
I did it today. There was a New York Times opinion piece, and it was, let's say, anti-Trump, even though it was just factual. And I signed up because I was like, okay, that is a free trial I can go for. I think it was like $1 a week for like 6 months. So it's $4 a month. And I'm like, you know what? I don't really trust the New York Times, but I will give them $4 a month.
Yeah, it would have to be digital newspapers on that one, like all the important news. But although I do believe that all the election stuff, all the election articles should be free for the public. But
I will say, though, article, not that good.
So they got you. They got your ass.
Yeah, they got me for $4.
You got suckered, I think, on something that you have a lower threshold than most. I think Tony's going to be the toughest one in here and to get a single dollar from him anywhere.
I would say maybe fantasy football stuff. Like there's some specific websites that have like a little bit more analytical kind of info that I would like to see, because the problem is they don't give that away. It's behind the paywall. But I've also learned how to skirt out of that too. So I would pay for that, but I have some people that have hooked me up. Shout out to my boy Adam, by the way.
Jessica, where is it that you might get lured
She
in?
Wrote.
That's the only one? Just Murder, She
Murder,
Wrote
She
on
Wrote.
CBS?
Columbo?
I figured you already had CBS. I figured that you brought their demo down. You are, by 60 years, the lowest of the demo in on CBS and Murder, She Wrote.
I'm at the end of season 1 right now. It's really remarkable how Jessica Fletcher just becomes such an overnight sensation. No one's ever heard of her, and then her debut novel comes out, and all of a sudden, the whole world, people recognize her walking down the street in Manhattan. It's crazy.
Do you have any connection point with people your age on something like Columbo? Like, do you run into anybody else your age who actually wants to discuss your desire to watch Columbo, the old 1970s detective show, pre-internet?
My sister?
So that's it, right? There's nobody. Your interest here.
Willow. She'll talk to me about
Your
it.
interest in CBS programming at your age is super strange. You're not finding connection points with anybody else here your age, correct?
Well, more people want to talk about Columbo than baseball, Dan. So
Well, I've got that problem because Jeremy, I'm with you on this. I'm with
Why
you
did they
on
wait
this.
till Friday, man? If it started yesterday, I would have been in. I would have watched the first 2 games, no doubt. But they're starting this on a Friday. I got things to do. Saturday's Miami.
Billy
FSU.
was saying
I'm
that
doing
all
this.
week. Billy was saying on Monday, baseball, you cannot wait until Friday here. You have the stage this week. You could have grabbed it. Nobody cares about the Rams Thursday night game. Give people Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani.
A few people might have Thursday Thunder on.
Exactly right.
I think I have a connection point to Giancarlo Stanton because he was a Marlin, and I really want to see him win. But I'm so detached from baseball that Mike Ryan Ruiz called Giancarlo Stanton Mike Stanton recently, and I was like, oh yeah, that was his name, and I didn't even remember that, and I was a fan of him at the time.
This World Series, to me,
It was pre-internet.
it conjures a time pre-internet for me nostalgically that gets touched so infrequently by sports these days because we're consuming so much of it, and it is a bombardment where, hey, look, can we get to the WNBA championship in the middle of a football Sunday? How do we forget about college football already on Saturday? Because all of this programming is inundating you. And I'm telling you, this World Series brings me back to a child when it was the most amazing thing in the world that I could watch these 2 teams on my television play baseball because I didn't have access to everything. And everything national wasn't regional. And everything regional wasn't national. I'm telling you that this World Series for me harkens a childlike innocence about my sports fandom where I'm like, oh, I get all the baseball, the best of the baseball, and none of the randomness. They got all of the bullshit out of here, and it's just the 2 teams that spend the most, who want my dollars the most. And I'm like, oh, my God, this is not how I viewed sports when I was 9 years old.
But doesn't Miami FSU do that for you too? No. Because it's on at the same time.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Honestly, that's super cute. And if I may break character for a second, I'm very excited for this World Series, and I'm wondering if Marlins fans will feel more upset if the Yankees win it given the Marlins' connection to several players? And if so, that could be a reason for me to root for the Yankees, perhaps.
This is the best storyline in the World Series. Miguel Rojas against Jazz Chisholm Jr.
What? Who?
It's unbelievable. The bitter rivalry between those two players.
I saw a video of Rojas explaining how to hit to Ohtani. I'm
my
I'm out
God.
on this guy.
It was insane.
I think I've made my selection on who I'm going to back in the World Series. El Alfa, obviously Dembo legend out of DR, has a song called the Soto Shuffle. So I think I'm siding with the Yankees. Tony Pinstripes.
Tony Pinstripes?
Dan, what is it about the actual game? It's the stars, right? I get the names, but during the game, are you like wowed by pitches? Are you enamored with, a certain swing that a guy...
No, well, what I would say to you is that baseball has gotten to such a ridiculous skill level that when I'm watching Juan Soto bat, I'm watching somebody who's got a plate discipline that I don't understand, because everybody who's throwing baseballs 3 inches outside the strike zone is throwing 98 miles an hour. And so the expertise I'm watching is better baseball players by leaps and bounds than any I've ever seen, because of where the science of the game has gotten to. And these guys are all or nothing about whether or not they can hit a home run on that 1-0-2 pitch that Stanton gets. Don't understand why anyone doesn't just throw it low and outside on him, outside the strike zone.
It drives me insane.
I don't understand how he ever hits an 0-2 home run, because he should swing and miss by 6 feet. He's so easy to pitch to, it seems like to me.
Well, I think that's why if you weren't a baseball just seam head growing up, you might not have that connection point, because you're looking on the screen. You don't know the storylines. You're just looking on the screen for something to keep me entertained. And the other day, I was watching 3 TVs on whatever, bottom left corner, and Anthony, who does not watch baseball at all but played baseball, just kind of caught a pitch out of the corner of his eye, and it's like, holy crap, that was a ridiculous pitch. And I was like, it just kind of sort of sparked a little light bulb over my head. I was like, well, if you actually watch these days, you might see that all the time and be enamored by it and just fall in love with the sport.
The reason, look, I've said this before about baseball. It's always been my favorite sport. It was my favorite sport growing up. And I was buying all those baseball abstracts because I was trying to figure out how it is they measured value in that sport. As I've watched sports over the last 30 years, 2 things that have happened in basketball and football is those people are so good at what they're doing and the way that they strategize that I don't have a way to keep up with what Eric Spoelstra is doing. It's too complicated for me. I don't totally understand what Mike McDaniel is doing. But in baseball, I have a decent idea, because of how they've done the measurement over the last 30 years, of what the manager is doing. And so what I'm appreciating about baseball is this thing I've always loved has gotten to a skill level where all of the people have all of the information they need, so that what used to be a line drive over second base, now the shortstop's always there, because these people know how to play them scientifically and have all sorts of probabilities on where a ball is going to be hit. The expertise I'm watching in baseball, to have the 2 best teams play it, to have both pitching staffs sort of broken so the home run hitters can be home run hitters, it makes it a World Series for all time. For me to watch it, my love of baseball is such that this one has the storylines and all the soap opera stuff and all of the excellence in, like, Stanton can hit a home run once every 4 at-bats, because he's made of materials and muscles that have perfected that sport and made the evolution of it such that guy can always hit a ball 450 feet or strike out missing a pitch by 6 feet.
It's also interesting watching a chess match between managers, because they have to deal with the rule changes now, with pitchers having to face 3 batters minimum. Like, that's really interesting.
The relievers are now all throwing like the all-stars you saw through your childhood. And if not, they're even nastier. And so now you have this combination where it feels like, particularly with these 2 teams and the stars that are across each lineup, like you're watching an all-star game every time, because every inning you're turning around and there's another guy throwing 101 miles an hour with a 2-foot break on a 2-seam and then hooking a slider around the other corner, and he's going up against one of the greatest hitters you've ever seen. This World Series is just
saw Barack
so full
Obama
of talent.
say that the NBA All-Star game has lost it. This is an all-star game in baseball for all the marbles.
It actually means something.
Yeah, but it's a get-right game for the Trojans because Lincoln Riley's been having a rough year, and you can't lose to Rutgers at home. They haven't won a game since they beat Wisconsin 38-21 in like week 4. And some people are saying beating Wisconsin might be a program killer because look at what happened to Alabama.
I wish the World Series had started tonight, but if it had, Tony and Mike would be arguing about Cooper Cup instead of watching.
Was he going to play or is he not going to play?
Are they going to trade him?
Here's what's going to
That's
happen.
the other thing. Where's Puka?
I'm going to channel surf. I'm going to land on the World Series, and I'm going to realize, oh, this is fun, and I'm only going to like it when the Yankees play the Dodgers.
Lakers Suns is that night too, I think.
Ooh. I mean, UNLV and Boise. If you want,
Genty's much-watched TV.
if you want to watch a quick preview of that on GenCFB.
Jazz.
Your show
Jazz.
Jazz.
It's your Jazz.
Who's
It
Jazz?
was so much
College football
easier when it was foot.
And Lucy was off this week, so Gojo came on, and we did a preview of that, a little Notre Dame and Navy preview. He's been in that rivalry before. He's played in that game. There's no one else you'd rather hear on.
We have 2 CFP eliminators this week.
CFP?
Yes. Well, this was the argument. Stugotz, I don't want all these mega conferences because people like to make the argument, less good games. That's what I like. So we have 2 games that are essentially CFP eliminators. Boise, UNLV, 3.5-point spread there. Genty, spotlight game. And you also have Missouri versus Alabama, CFP eliminator game. The playoffs do exist in the regular season the way that they existed before. They just have like 2 losses in the L column. Okay, that's a better pivot, and that's a sacrifice that we make to get games like Ohio State at Oregon.
I'll give you one more. Vanderbilt, Texas. I mean,
Well,
put the kids to sleep
what
for that
what are
one.
you covering in Gen CFB?
The CFP.
The reason that I
College
asked the
football playoff.
question is because I wanted to know whether we have coverage in today's show of hashtag FSU week or not. Do we have coverage in today's show on why it is and where it is hashtag FSU week is trending?
Not going to lie, we haven't talked a lot about the Miami Hurricanes on Gen CFB this year. Why is that? Because they've been winning. Because there's really been nothing interesting to talk about. And we already talk about them enough on this show. So, Mike, take it away.
We don't. We don't talk about them on this show.
And it's plenty.
I had to buy into another company to be able to talk about the Miami Hurricanes football team. But yeah, we don't talk about them because they're winning and doing their job. But FSU historically always means something, even when those 2 programs are middling. One of them is, well, not even middling. They're bottoming.
Heyo. So nobody's with me that Genty has an unfair advantage at home games because he's camouflaged into the field?
No, I like that take. I think if I'm Travis Hunter, that's what I'm going with for the rest of the season.
Miami's wearing black uniforms. They have that black backdrop on the field. Keep an eye on
work for Cam.
extra interceptions.
Let me talk about this for a second, Mike, because it is going to get in the way of my World Series viewing. Because yes, UMSU still does mean something to me. UM week still does mean something.
I get it now.
To me, because we have Bobby Bowden. These 2 programs fought at the top of the sport. They were Alabama and Georgia before Alabama and Georgia, and it harkens to a different time. But whether we've talked enough about Miami or not, I believe the general national perception on Miami, given the way the games have gone, is some form of they haven't played anybody. I don't believe in that undefeated, even though they can score against anybody because their quarterback is obviously elite. Earlier this week, and I didn't hear from you on this, and I am curious, and I'm curious what Jessica has to say about this as well. Earlier this week, I said, having seen all of the University of Miami quarterbacks, Jim Kelly, Gino Torretta, they've had the 3 first-round picks. It's Bernie Kosar, Vinny Testaverde, and Jim Kelly are the first-round picks. I said Cam Ward's the best college quarterback in their history. It doesn't mean he'll be the best pro. Statistically, it's going to be inarguable. He's going to break all the records. We have to do new math for new offensive evolution. But at the position, and I don't even know if Jess remembers, once upon a time, allegedly, the University of Miami was called quarterback U.
Yeah. 2 Heisman Trophy winners at the position.
This is the best quarterback that they've ever had playing statistically in college. It cannot be argued. It's not even close. How much of the math do I have to alter for today's offense to dilute that? Because I don't think anyone can object to what I'm saying, even though Cam Ward, as a professional talent, is maybe he's a number one, maybe he's a first-round pick, but I don't think of him as a pro the way I'm watching him play in college and saying that's among the best college quarterbacks I've ever seen. Jameis Winston, Danny Werfel, whatever it is you do with system, time, and place, that guy can make offense against anybody.
When you had the take, it kind of summed me a little bit because I hadn't heard like a traditional media star come out with that take. I've seen people on the internet venture into a forum and say, I think he's the best Miami quarterback of all time. And it's an interesting rhetorical trick because Miami has, as even though they've won 5 natties, they haven't had, and they've had 2 Heisman Trophy winners, they aren't really known as a school that's put out great quarterbacks, despite that QBU thing. Those weren't guys that did much in the NFL. Testaverde took them
by talent.
Testaverde was arguably a bust until he figured it out later in his career. I actually think you're on to something because this quarterback will, in all likelihood, get drafted in the upper first round. He's only 13 passing touchdowns away from setting the combined FBS, FCS, NCAA record for passing touchdowns. Jeremy and I broke down that there's a scenario in which Dylan Gabriel and Cam Ward can meet up in the playoffs, later in the playoffs, and not only have that game at stake, but also the all-time passing record combined FCS, FBS on the line as well. I think you're kind of right. Ken Dorsey, here's where you can push back on. For me, Testaverde, it's hard to not hold against him that interception performance that he had against Penn State. But that team did win.
In the national championship game, he threw 5 interceptions. Jimmy Johnson's greatest regret as a coach is that he didn't run the ball more in that game.
So Testaverde, for me, Kozart, Testaverde, Dorsey, that's the top tier of Miami football. I think if Miami turns this thing around, gets to the CFP, perhaps wins an ACC championship, then you can invoke that. But I think the position at Miami is so tied to success on the field, not just individual success, that he has to do things like get to New York for the Heisman ceremony and has to do some winning for Miami to be in that class.
Well, I will tell you, because I think the national perception of this is simply Miami has not played anybody. So I reduce all of what those stats are. I don't care that statistically he's putting up more big games to start a career back to back to back than anyone has ever done.
It's fair. It's a fair criticism of Miami. I'll concede that. Their schedule hasn't put up a fight in the ways that you would hope when you saw it line up.
The way that Vinny Testaverde, though, won the Heisman Trophy is he had one play in a game against Oklahoma that everyone saw. His shoulder pad came out. Everyone saw him beat Oklahoma. Cam has 5 of those a game.
Right, and that's what I was going to say about this team and those other quarterbacks. And I don't know if I'm just doing this because I'm not as familiar with the skill position players now that I was when these other quarterbacks played, but watching the games, this is where you can't just look at the box score, it feels like Cam is leading them. It feels like those yards are gained because he is extending a play, finding a receiver, making just the right play at the right time, leading that group, and he just feels more responsible for the success than some of those other quarterbacks who, again, were just had talent all around them. They went from QBU to tight end U for a little bit because of the Shockey and Winslow stuff.
That one's it's interesting with Cam in that a lot of his great moments is he's digging himself out of a hole that he dug himself. And he's going to be a perplexing person for NFL front offices to break down because even in that Louisville game, he missed 2 wide open house calls on like 9-yard slants. And then he turns around and throws that ball well into the back of the end zone, kind of like that play that he had at Gainesville week 1. He might get a GM fired, but a team is going to totally fall in love with his ability to not quit and make these unbelievable throws.
Do the Canes live in the same spot that we had the Dolphins in last year where like any hole, I feel like I trust the Canes to get out of it?
Did we say that about the Dolphins last year?
Yeah. Or the Dolphins could be down 14. You're like, oh, okay.
After
no
that
biggie.
Ravens game.
Their offense was good enough. Yeah, I think 35-10 against Cal does that. I have loved The Daily Show for a long time, and I have loved Roy Wood Jr.'s work for a long time, and I wish that he had the full weight of The Daily Show resources behind him because I would have loved to have seen what he would have made running that entire empire. But he's got something now that, while probably not in the same realm of resources, have I got news for you, is an ambitious, funny show that navigates through CNN and Max politics in a way that I believe funny people would really appreciate the same way they appreciate John Oliver and the same way they appreciate The Daily Show. So I don't know what the feedback has been so far, Roy, and I want to talk to you about the things that are going on right now in sports and elsewhere. But you have a special show. You are doing something that seems particularly suited to your talents. And what is the floor of this show with reps, the ceiling can be amazing. And I hope you're already feeling that because the show is really fun to watch. And you're a smart navigator of some difficult political times.
I appreciate it, man. It's just a fake news quiz show about the weekend current events. So we get to be fun with it a little bit more than what we were doing with The Daily Show, where, you know, you kind of got to get into the humanity of it. And thankfully, CNN on a Saturday night, there's no room for humanity. These are jokes and information. Let's keep it moving. And so, you know, the ratings have been great. The execs are happy. You know, I know we're making a dent because I got my first death threat, and that means you're doing something good with regards to making fun of people. So, you know, you gotta measure your career and threats to your person.
But beyond that, though, you're also navigating a difficult time in comedy where people are scared to get close to the politics. Roy, you're taking a lane here. Like, people pretend to be edgy around the politics, but you're taking a lane here that people, I imagine, would appreciate, having something that they can just laugh at because of the sheer absurdity. The way the Tonight Show once upon a time went after politicians and the way that you do it at the Correspondents' Dinner, you're actually navigating a very difficult time in comedy and politics to do a show that has some degree of difficulty on it.
What we hope to do also is get politicians on so we can play some of these games to their face. That's what made the British version. You know, our show is a remake of a British version that's been around for 35 years. And that show made its name for itself by bringing on officials who were currently in office, not like former I was an advisor to the aide, to the... No, active members of parliament will come and sit on that show and get roasted a little bit to their face. So I think as the show grows and we gain the trust, I think we'll be in a position to be able to do the same thing. You know, politicians be weird about, you know, public appearances sometimes, especially with my ass. Once they know I'm involved, got to put somebody else on the email.
Roy, Izzy Gutierrez here. I've been loving your segments with the show. Pleasure to meet you here. I am curious, though, have you always matched your AirPods to your outfit? Because that is gangster.
No, not always, but I was gifted a couple of different like custom colored AirPods from a woman who's no longer in my life. But this is a nice little souvenir.
It is stylish. I'm curious, before we get to some of the pop culture stuff this week, can you speak honestly and overtly about how you feel about how John Oliver, Bill Maher, and other people in this space attack comedy?
To me, they're the more fearless ones. You know, because they're standing alone. Like, no matter what I was saying on Daily Show, I had Trevor right there kind of as a right hand to kind of Jordan Pippen the situation. You know, the way that they carry this stuff and the way that they've been able to just attack issue after issue after issue. And they're not always going to be you're not going to agree with them every time, but I respect the attempt. And, you know, people, you know, as much as we talk about Jon Stewart, I think we forget that Bill Maher has been doing this since the mid-90s-ish, give or take, somewhere in there. I feel like he and Colin Quinn were kind of like 1.0s to Jon Stewart's 1.5.
I'd argue that those shows are better than these shows. No affront to these shows, just because they were during the hungriest time in those comedy people's lives. Like those people, they were immature, but they've never been hungrier than they were on that show.
Yeah, I mean, you take a show like Politically Incorrect, and it's similar to what we're doing right now at CNN, only you remove the game show element of it. You kind of have to gamify stuff to kind of lure people in to actually want to watch stuff sometimes in a way, because they want to see if they're smart or how, you know, I want to measure up my smarts to some dummy on television. But yeah, those guys, I think they were very much, you know, patient zeros on figuring out how to use comedy and politics to punch up at the establishment.
Let's go out here to get some expert analysis on some of the things that happened in politics this week. Let's go out to Obama here. He surprised some people. I don't know that you should be surprised by this, but let's see what Roy has to say about this.
Now, notice my palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, vomit on my sweater already, mom's spaghetti. I'm nervous, but on the surface I look calm and ready to drop bombs, but I keep on forgetting. Dun, 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 dun. I thought Eminem was going to be performing. I was going to jump out. Love me some Eminem. Now notice my palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy.
Roy, your thoughts on what just happened there?
I appreciate you. Look, this is what y'all got to understand. We are in pander phase of the election, okay? This is what you have to do to activate some voters. You can't talk policy no more. I got to trick Michigan voters into thinking that I know every single Eminem song. And if they really wanted to test Obama's love, they should have asked him to spit Eminem's verse from Renegade off the Jay-Z album. That would have been more impressive just because of the lung play on that one. I believe that President Obama is legitimately a fan of Eminem? I think he appreciates Eminem, but if we go back through the crates, you got journalists there. They can dig in this while we're talking. I don't think in any of Obama's playlists, you know how like every year they made us think that what the president listens to is relevant? I don't think Eminem made many of those lists, if any. I'm looking at one right now from 2012, and it's got Wilco and REO Speedwagon, Aretha, Al Green, Darius Rucker, Ricky Martin, Springs, no Eminem. Where's the authenticity?
Yeah, it's a good
so
point.
You had 8 years to put Eminem, and I'm not saying he didn't, but this is a man who's an open Jay-Z fan. He sang Al Green Gutierrez. Do you remember? He sang Love and Happiness.
REO Speedwagon, huh? That was on the play.
2012. I'm reading the New Yorker list right now. I'm fine with it. Whatever it takes to get people out to vote, that's what you got to do now. If you got to get Beyonce, there's rumors that Beyonce's going to pull up to the Houston rally this week. If you got to go to McDonald's, if you have to build a McDonald's and then pretend to work in that McDonald's and then have pretend customers in that McDonald's because you think that will get you more votes, you got to do it. If Trump was going to fake doing a job, he should have faked being a DJ. That's what I would have done.
It's a little easier.
If I wanted to reach middle-class voters or people that are dealing with real-life issues, if I'm Trump, I would pretend to be a DJ, I would build a fake liquor store, or I would pretend to work at a check cashing spot. Like, there's something, or the DMV. There's something where you meet voters on a more regular Why is McDonald's the job? There's a lot of other jobs you could do. You could be cable man. Say you're going to come by my house between 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. and then show up at 11 p.m.
A check cashing store.
That's a regular job. I mean, I think that if you're talking about reaching voters where they are, and if this is a battle between undecided voters, a lot of undecided voters, in my opinion, a lot of people are just busy. Like, we want to call all undecided voters dumb, and I think there is an element of that, but a lot of folks ain't got time to consume news and politics and every nuanced fact the way we do. They just don't have the time. So I think you have to respect the fact that some people, it just comes down to, did Obama fumble the Eminem verse? Yes or no?
Let's play here a clip of Elon Musk hopping around. Tim Walz might call this, quote, like a dipshit. Let's just see what the signature, what is your appraisal here of Elon Musk? I want to play some John Amici sound about Elon Musk towel? As well. Now it looks like a terrible towel. What are your thoughts here, Roy?
Elon Musk is the Make-A-Wish kid who could just afford to make all his own wishes his damn self. And he just out there living the dream. He want a rocket. I got a rocket. I got a car that can drive itself. I could be friends with Dave Chappelle if I want to be friends with Dave Chappelle.
It's so
if
funny,
if I want to be next to the president, if I want 10 kids, I want a big house. If I want to buy a social media company and make it worse and then make it a ruthless emotional free-for-all where strangers can come and fight each other, I could do that too. Like, I think what Elon Musk is doing, and then also there's the petition stuff with the money for the sign the petition to pledge your allegiance to the First and Second Amendment, but also vote for Trump. Like, I think that what Elon is doing is just really showing us what a lot of rich people do behind the scenes. And he's just not as slick about it. He's just not as sly about it, because I don't think he completely understands how American politics work in terms of just being on the low with how you make your money influence the fate of a country. But I hope that he looks back on this and is embarrassed at just not having a T-shirt that's long enough. Some T-shirt company should reach out to Elon Musk. I don't know. You know, one of those shirts, Gutierrez, where they try to make husky dudes like me not feel fat.
Yo, I hate those shirts. I mean, I wouldn't
This
even wear
shirt
one.
is
I don't
slim
want to
and it
show off
covers
my
your
little belly.
gut.
No. I hate those.
Yeah, he's just rich and bored, man. So he's just, I'm going to go hang out with the president and pretend to care about Pittsburgh for a couple of weeks.
I want to play the Amici sound for Roy Wood here on Elon Musk. It's more serious than what he was saying, but I'd like your appraisal on this.
On another front, can I just say that I hate Elon Musk? There are very few people in this world that I devote the energy to hate, and I devote energy to hate. He's a cuckoo, and I don't understand why people don't recognize this. He's a cuckoo. He doesn't found anything or invent anything. I'm not suggesting he's not clever, but he doesn't found anything. He's just a cuckoo. He arrives in a nest and pushes out the founders and then opens his gob wide and forces the government to feed him subsidies, and then flits off to another nest and pushes out another couple of founders and gorges on the public purse. Ugh. Do an AI image of that, why don't you?
He's so condescending, so disgusting,
So good.
disgusted, so English.
I like when intelligent people get mad because they use an accent and an inflection that just suggests you're not really smart and have never been intelligent, but you have fooled the remedially unintelligent as well.
Can I get your opinion on some video here that we're going to play for you? Using legal tender and buying strawberries with cash.
British people.
It has been a theme of ours during the week because, yes, angry British people are funnier this way. And before I get your semi-sure bet of the week and before I get your thoughts on LeBron and Bronny, let's just get Roy Wood to make a ruling on this, paying cash for something in a cashless store.
I'm going to buy some strawberries, and I'm offering exactly the right amount of money here. So you people take that money, and I will take my strawberries outside. I paid by legal tender.
No, don't break the door. Do not break the door. No, don't.
I paid by legal tender, and I am going out with my strawberries. I paid by legal tender in this dystopian place.
You should be able to spend wherever you want. This is an absolute joke.
You want one, mate?
Make a ruling, Roy.
Cash plays. Cash rules everything around us.
Thank you.
This cashless society nonsense,
Thank you.
it is discriminatory. I know we ain't got time to get in the weeds on that, but it's straight up discriminatory. Everybody ain't got a bank account tied to a Cash App or tied to a QR code. Take the money and kiss my ass. I'm walking out.
That's right.
And if you got to take me to jail, take me to jail.
That's right. Thank you. We are unified on this, sir. Let's hold up our fists
Except
together.
for at a professional sports stadium, because it slows down the line. I need you to get your ass, get that chip and put it in there and get the hell out the way. I'm
That's
cutting
right.
off.
Thank you.
What do you got for us on LeBron and Bronny?
Do you all feel like LeBron and Bronny is a situation where journalists either have to say what is supposed to be said versus what they really see? Or is it not that big of a deal? Because I feel like I'm the only person that's kind of fine with him, regardless of skill set and regardless of whether or not he was ready. We're arguing about the 10th spot on the bench, right? That's what we're arguing about, right?
Yeah.
Like, how is that different than when some team keeps an old guy for a little longer because, well, he earned it and we just want to keep him on the team? If he's not producing, shouldn't he be gone for the younger person that's more anxious and more productive than that person. Like, this is why I hate that the conversation around nepotism is only around athletics and politics. If this was a blue-collar job, if LeBron James was your plumber and he walked in with that boy and they was both there to get the turd out your toilet, you wouldn't be asking whether or not Bronny is qualified. If anything, it gives you more comfort when you hear something called such and sons. You go, oh, I like it. That's all that family ever does.
Look at all the turds out.
Turds. If you change the name, if you change them to the Los Angeles LeBron and Sons, there would be no more complaints about
them to help me
Bronny.
move.
Yeah, it was something similar that happened with the Cubs and Kyle Hendricks, with Hendricks' productivity, but, you wanted to make sure that he became a 10-year guy. So they let him stay in, and also it's kind of a rebuilding year. It was low expectations for the Cubs, but let's stop acting like you can't just have one little trick to help sell tickets. Because you're telling me people ain't going to come see the father-son show?
But what if the turd is still in the toilet when they leave?
That is a very good point that I have not thought about. We are trying to sell tickets.
Put it on the poll, please. Juju at Le Batard Show. Are you comforted when doing business when the truck rolls up and an and Sons is on the side of the truck?
Nepotism is great when you need to take a dump and you can't. Then it's oh yeah, I love and Sons. We've been around for 60 years in this neighborhood. The dry cleaner with the grandchild, 8 years old, already back there, steaming business casual attire. You don't have no problem with nepotism then, do you?
Your semi-sure bet of the week every other week or so. This is a bit inexact.
We are rolling this into the same nepotism. So, Dan Le Batard, the Griffeys played together, Father Griffey and Junior Griffey in 1990. That year, the World Series underdogs, there they are, the underdog Red Cincinnati Reds, shout out to Jose Rio, swept the A's. Also in the finals, Jordan, underdog, overtook Magic, ending the Lakers dynasty. And in that presidency, underdog Bill Clinton beat George W. Bush. So now, what do we have in 2024? If we let sports tell the history, Dan Le Batard, we have father-son, Brian and Bronny playing. My guaranteed semi-sure bet of the week, guaranteed to come home, possibly, maybe. Underdog Yankees sweep the Dodgers. Same Reds. Wow. Underdog Yankees sweep the Dodgers. I know y'all don't like to hear that. I know Shohei's our friend, and we love Shohei, America's favorite immigrant. He's my friend, too. Sorry, Shohei. Better luck next year. Also, give me Anthony Davis. Give me Ant and the Knicks sweeping Steph and the Warriors. Underdog.
Wait a minute.
And lastly,
so who is that though?
Carl Anthony Towns, I think.
Okay,
Carl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, Big Cat, not Ant. Ant is.
I'm not calling him Big Cat. Let's not even get into that. That's disrespect to some of the women that I've met at strip clubs. I will call him Carl Anthony Towns. Okay. Carl Anthony Towns is the underdog, sweep the Knicks, and give me Trump underdog over Kamala Harris if sports is telling the story. That is the only reason I'm saying what I just said. So to recap, you're guaranteed semi-sure bet, Yanks sweep Dodgers, Knicks sweep Warriors, Trump over Kamala.
Never
because Ron and Bronny are playing this week.
Trump over Kamala, bold prediction. The quiz show is called.
It's not a prediction, it's history. Respect the history. This is for sure possibly going to hit.
Betting favorite right now.
The quiz show is called Have I Got News For You? Saturday nights at 9 Eastern on CNN, then streaming Sunday on Max. Thank you, Roy. Appreciate it, sir, as always.
As always. Israel, a pleasure.
GenCFB is next.
Welcome back to another edition of GenCFB. I'm Jessica Smetana. Lucy Rodin is out this week, so I brought in my good friend Mike Golick Jr. from Golick and Gojo on the DraftKings Network to talk about the last week of college football and the upcoming week of college football. As always, we are brought to you by Cheez-It. This season, we are feeling the cheesiest with Cheez-It. Gojo, are you feeling cheesy today?
I woke up feeling cheesiest, Jess,
cheese,
as I do every day of my life. Cheese.
Me too, as always. I'm so happy to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's been, we were just talking off air. I can't believe we're already going into week 9 right now. It's crazy to think this much of college football season's over, even though with the expanded playoff, we know we go all the way to Jan 20. So it's a wild ride that's not even really halfway over, even though it feels more than that.
It is not even halfway over, although it did feel over for a couple teams this week. And we're going to get to the bottom of what's going on this season in college football with a little game that Taylor made up called Questions That Need Answers. Gojo, we're going to ask questions. I'm specifically going to ask questions to you, and you're going to tell us the answers that we need to these questions. So let's start with what was one of the biggest games from the weekend, Georgia at Texas. Texas gets shut out of the first half. Georgia looks like by far the better team, even though Kirby Smart said we all doubted him. Gojo, questions that need answers. Who are all these people that doubted Georgia all season?
I guess he's probably someone who watched College Game Day. I didn't see what the full pick tracker looked like there, if it was all Longhorns and that or not. But listen, I know I picked Texas in this one. I know there were a lot of people that did say Texas has now come into the SEC year one and looked like the best team. And so it doesn't ever have to be much. You know, these coaches are maniacs, Jess. They're all wired to look for this advantage. Everyone could have picked Georgia to win, and Kirby Smart still would have not only convinced himself, but convinced that whole team that everyone doubted them. It's the most Saban thing about him.
Yeah, it's a great motivational tactic for your team. Georgia, their stop rate, 83%, 7 sacks generated, 10 tackles for loss, 1 interception, 3 forced fumbles on Texas. It's tough to win a game when another team's defense is doing all of that stuff to you. And Texas, only 2 for 15 on third down, 1 of 5 on fourth down. Gojo, what did you think was the biggest difference in this game? Was it just Georgia's front seven? Was it Texas having a weak offensive line? You're our offensive line guru. Can you give them a grade for us?
Yeah, listen, they got pushed around a little bit up front. And I will say, going back and watching it wasn't as bad as I thought, if that makes sense. Quite honestly, I thought as dominant, maybe even more dominant, was the Georgia secondary. Malachi Starks and the rest of that group gave them nowhere to go with the football. This Texas wide receiver room has a ton of talent. We know they portaled in to replace last year, but they confused Quinn Ewers pre and post snap. I thought Kirby Smart and that defensive game plan were always a step ahead of Steve Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers, who Steve Sarkisian, for my money, is the best offensive play caller in college football. And it just looked like they were drowning the entire night. So the offensive line didn't play great, but there also weren't a ton of options and places to go downfield that there usually are. Quinn Ewers usually has pretty good answers in the pass game just based on scheme design, but he's also usually a lot better, and was before the injury, at manipulating the pocket and doing things to help out that group up front. And so I think they all got physically and mentally overmatched at the beginning of this game, showed up some in the second half, but just too little too late.
Yeah, another thing that happened in the second half, obviously this very controversial moment where Texas fans threw bottles onto the field. So here is another question that needs an answer. How come Texas didn't get a delay of game penalty for the cleanup effort that had to happen after they did all of that?
Stunned. I think embarrassment from the officiating crew, because while we know it got laid out after the fact that the officials got together and decided to pick up the flag that should have never gotten dropped in the first place, that was the source of all that consternation, it looked like they got swayed by the crowd getting mad at them, and they couldn't afford for that perception to be out there. And so I'm sure, just to try and avoid any more ire in that situation, because they are human, they might have just oopsies forgot about that. So the whole situation is a mess and sets a really bad precedent. Even if the way they explained it does make some logistical sense, the way it came off looking is a nightmare for the SEC.
You could say it's a slippery slope. This is a question from Taylor, Gojo. If you have 2 quarterbacks, do you have none apply if one is a Manning? I'm not sure. Neither quarterback was going to win this game for Texas, in my opinion. But I guess, does that apply to a Manning, Gojo?
Yeah. I don't think it applies to a Manning. That's a great question. I also don't think it applies to this team, because in this case, they have 2 really good quarterbacks. They've got one of the best, if not the best, quarterback room in college football. It was just one of those nights. And Quinn Ewers, I think part of this is still him coming back off the injury, maybe not quite feeling like himself. And it showed in the way that he just looked confused for a lot of the first half of that game. But I actually think in this case, they have 2 quarterbacks in Austin. It's just neither of them was going to beat that Georgia defense that it looks like, when dialed in, is the best unit on either side of the ball in college football.
Okay, you get credit for having the good question. Thank you, Taylor. Okay, here is an actual question that needs an answer, because Oklahoma has looked really bad this season, especially mostly just their offense. Like, I think their defense has still been really solid. They fired their offensive coordinator this weekend. So who is Texas's best win going into this game at Vanderbilt? Is it Louisiana Monroe? Is it General Booty's Louisiana Monroe team, Mike?
It certainly looks like it right now. I mean, Mississippi State played Texas A&M a little closer than most people expected this
Feisty
last
team,
weekend.
yeah.
The Michigan defense, I think early in the season it's still a really good, talented group. They've just been so worn down by how bad the offense is. But you're right, there's not a lot of quality on the Texas schedule. And in fairness to them, they made most of those teams look inferior the way they addressed them. Oklahoma, we know, is a rivalry game, and it's a little bit different, but it is going to be interesting from here on out. The Vanderbilt game suddenly becomes important.
Quality
Texas
win if they beat Vanderbilt. Yeah, it's going to be a big one this weekend against Vanderbilt. I'm not even joking. It's a quality win if they beat Vanderbilt. Let's move on to another big SEC game from this past weekend. Alabama losing at Tennessee in one of the best rivalries in college football. Questions that need answers. Gojo, how old is Ryan Williams?
Isn't he 18 now?
I think he's still 17.
Is he still 17? I was unsure.
That was like a joke
this summer.
It was a joke question, but because they say it so many times.
They do. I mean, what gets said more often, that or the playoff predictor percentage for a team getting ready to make the postseason?
I know you watched that Notre Dame Georgia Tech game. Man, that 60% stat that they kept putting on the screen was driving me crazy. But okay, here's a serious question. Jalen Milroe, the Alabama quarterback, is this just the kind of player he is? Is he just someone that's going to be inconsistent at times, make mistakes at times, turn it over at times, but then turn around and, maybe have an incredible play in the next game and make you forget about all that?
I think so. I think we've got a big enough sample size to say that, and especially now inside a Kalen DeBoer offense that's supposed to be this place where quarterbacks can have a great time. And we've seen Kalen DeBoer's had great quarterback play. Michael Penix both at IU and at Washington, Jake Haener at Fresno State. And so when you've got a guy in an offense that's supposed to be quarterback friendly, unable to take advantage of a lot of those easy throws, not even the tough stuff, but you saw clean pockets where Jalen Milroe wasn't getting it done. He just may not be the kind of guy that's going to elevate this offense, and how Alabama and Kalen DeBoer adjust to that throughout the rest of the season, kind of similar to the way Tommy Rees and them had to adjust to him towards the end of last season to get the most out of them and get them to the playoffs, is going to determine whether or not they make it into the expanded one.
Yeah, Alabama had 0 explosive plays against this Tennessee defense, which I do rate very highly. They're a very good unit. James Pierce had 1.5 sacks, 1.5 tackles for loss. At the other side of that, Alabama's defense allowed 7 explosive plays, which I think was the real big difference in this game. It was a close game, and that long pass from Nico to set up a touchdown, like that. Those explosive plays, like that's kind of the difference when you're playing, when two teams have offenses that are just not able to convert a lot of stuff. So we said last week a key for Alabama to win this game was no turnovers from Milroe. He had a lot of turnovers in this game. A lot of bad turnovers.
And you just can't afford that, because to your point, the big plays against Tennessee are just going to come. It's too much pace and space, and when you've got a quarterback that's actually a run threat, eventually they're going to hit in that offense. We saw Nico airmail a lot of balls that looked more like the Joe Milton version of the offense than the Hendon Hooker version of the offense. So they're not firing on all cylinders. I thought Bama's defense overall did a pretty good job, but you can't give them that many bites at the apple. It's just not going to work out the way Josh runs that.
Okay, let's move on to another game in the Big Ten. USC losing its 4th Big Ten game of the season to Maryland. Mike, USC has now lost 4 of these one-possession games, this one coming at Maryland, a Maryland team that got blown out last week by Northwestern. Is this sort of rock bottom for Lincoln Riley right now at USC, all bias aside?
It certainly feels like it. I think, people pointed out his record and the similarities between Clay Helton and all those things that are, a tough reflection. We know Lincoln Riley, you're always going to get blue chip quarterback play, and that answers the toughest question that any team in football can face is who's your quarterback and how well is he playing? Having that steadied definitely goes a long way, but it's all the worst fears that people had for USC going to the Big Ten, which is they'd get embarrassed in the trenches, and that's exactly where it's happened. And so I do think a shot at the pride. I mean, the USC teams I grew up watching in the early 2000s were dominant on the offensive and defensive lines. And so to watch them now be one of the teams moving into a new conference, getting thoroughly dunked on, because that area where we had heard all the headlines about how much weight they gained in the trenches in the offseason, you stole a D coordinator from your rival across the street, and it doesn't seem to have paid off in any meaningful meaningful way for you so far.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of stories being written about the recruiting deficiencies in the Southern California region, and like Lincoln Riley not visiting those schools as much as maybe some of his predecessors at USC, and not recruiting well out of California, which is something that pisses a lot of fans off, I think. Also, we've mentioned on this show before, he tends to get a little snippy sometimes in press conferences. And
well, it's a different world now than it is in the media you're dealing with at Oklahoma. You've got less insulation out here in a place that only cares so much to begin with about college sports. You got to force Los Angeles to give a damn about this, and right now USC's not getting that done.
Yeah, but they do host Rutgers on Friday at the same time as the Dodgers-Yankees game. So that will be an interesting one to see how many people show up for Rutgers' first in-conference trip to the Coliseum. And like, all bias aside, it's been a rough year for Lincoln Riley. And I say that now knowing I have now jinxed Notre Dame into losing them in the final game of the season. 100% that just happened. But it's been rough. Okay, another Big Ten game this weekend, Illinois and Michigan. Here is a question that needs an answer. When did broadcast booths stop wearing cozy little cardigans with the little names, like did you see what Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson were wearing? I mean, they were doing like this 100-year anniversary of Memorial Stadium thing where they were dressed up like they were in the 1920s, and they looked so cozy. Why did we get away from that?
Jess, broadcast fashion has been one of the things I've railed against the most during my time as a broadcaster. It is criminal that we've forsaken cozy in the name of suits that people generally see on air for maybe 40 seconds of airtime for most broadcasts that aren't the aid crew. It's a complete waste of time, tailoring, and all of our money, and we need to remedy that by going back to cozy season full time. I am in full agreement there.
This is why Al and Chris on Sunday Night Football in quarter zips was the golden era of television broadcasting, in my opinion. In all honesty, this is Illinois' best season in maybe a decade. I mean, they were good in 2022, don't get me wrong, but I think 2001 they played in the Rose Bowl. I think 2007 they were really good. So I'm putting this up there with one of their better seasons in the last, like, we'll say decade and a half. But Mike, do you think Illinois has an actual shot at upsetting Oregon this weekend?
No, I don't think so in particular here. I think Illinois is kind of the meat of the Big Ten bell curve, right? You get quarterback play every once in a while, though this last weekend they out-Michiganed Michigan with Luke Altmaier going 9 for 18 for 80 yards and somehow beating them by 2 touchdowns. Riddle me that one. But I think this Oregon team has kind of fixed a lot of the things that ailed them during that first 4-game stretch where we judged them pretty harshly. You turn on the tape against Ohio State, D-line is active and impressive. Derek Harmon's been one of the best interior guys in the country. Dylan Gabriel on that offense finally starting to make big plays more consistently downfield, targeting Evan Stewart a little bit more. I just don't think Illinois can keep up with that kind of firepower.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. As fun as I think it would be to see this Illini team have a big upset like that and beat Oregon. I think Oregon is, after this past weekend, Texas, Georgia, I think Oregon is looking like a very complete college football team right now. And I sort of like them up until we'll see what happens in a potential Big Ten championship game. But okay, before we move on to week 9, I do want to ask you just 2 more questions. One, is Indiana for real? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitively yes.
I agree, yes. Curtis Rourke, I know he's going to be out for this weekend's game against Washington. College Game Day is going to be in Bloomington, which is a lot of fun. But I do think they are good. And I think beating the crap out of Nebraska should not be taken for granted. Okay, last question. This is a question that needs answered that Taylor wrote down. Is Miami's best player the ACC Command Center? Taylor, that's not very nice.
I mean, we do tend to see them a lot during Miami games. So I would say it's close. It's probably like a 1A,
Cam
1B,
Ward.
Cam Ward,
ACC
1A, ACC Command Center 1B, which you'd think with how much the ACC Command Center's on camera, especially for that, they'd zhuzh it up a little bit more. It's such a weird, hollow setup.
It's so weird. I agree.
Sell ad space in there. Start to have product all around. Why aren't there mascots sitting at that table? Do something.
That's actually a great idea. They should totally do that. As close as the Miami Louisville game was, and the Miami Cal game was, and Miami Virginia Tech game, I think Miami is a better team than all 3 of those teams that they narrowly defeated. So I don't think that the Cam Ward incomplete pass was a fumble. I think that was probably the right call. But it is the kind of thing where, like, you're playing all these teams close that are not as good as you. You're bound to not get one of these calls at some point. So you better start winning in higher margins, in my opinion, if you're Miami.
I would agree, and that's more so, I think, for their high-end hopes of being a CFP team, because you're right. This is kind of, do you remember the Florida State team in 2014, the first year of the college football playoff?
Do I remember the Florida State team, or the pick play?
Sorry.
Don't get me started. Yeah, they were winning games by one possession all season long, and we were all watching, just waiting for them to finally lose a game, and it didn't happen until the end of the season. They somehow got away with it, but sometimes good teams get away with some close ones. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a long season. You need that stuff to happen. I know that from firsthand experience. You need the ball to bounce your way. And thankfully for them, they've got a guy who's probably among the quarterbacks right now, the easy leader for the Heisman Trophy, and Cam Ward. He's staring up at Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty, but he's been a guy that's made the incredible look effortless so far this season.
That will bring us into our Week 9 preview, presented by Hampton Farms Peanuts, the official snack nut of the tailgate. Mike, we are sponsored by Peanuts, and we love them. You mentioned Ashton Genty. He plays for Boise State. They're on this weekend on Friday against UNLV. This is probably the biggest game of their season. This is two good teams. We've got Ashton Genty on one offense, and we've got this nice little go-go offense on the other side of the football. What can you tell us about this kind of offensive scheme that UNLV runs?
Yeah, so the go-go offense, Brennan Marion, their offensive coordinator, ran this in high school, ran this at a couple of stops along the way before this, and it's the kind of creativity that generally is born from high school, where you've got to figure out a bunch of smoke and mirrors to try and manufacture big shots to go along with what's kind of a pseudo triple option attack. We'll talk about Navy and Notre Dame at some point. It's very akin to what Navy's doing this year on offense, where it's got spread elements to it. You create some unique looks to try and mess with the rules on defense, all to either set up better rushing lane and opportunities, running versions of the spread option, or set up big plays that are a huge hallmark of an offense that's going to use space too. So it's been fun to see it on the FBS level, and it's been a huge key. I mean, we know UNLV, it's well documented, had the quarterback change. One quarterback decides to opt out. Haj Malik Williams has come in and not missed a beat, and really, I think, helped expand this passing offense even more. So it's a very good team that Boise's getting ready to face, that they also faced in the Mountain West title game last year.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. There's been a lot of good Friday night games this season, and this one I don't think will disappoint either. Let's move on to Saturday. You mentioned Notre Dame and Navy, noon game, ranked Navy and Notre Dame at MetLife Stadium. You played against Navy like a half dozen times at Notre Dame. You've been in all the prep meetings where Notre Dame has to transition from playing their sort of like normal base defense to now we're going to defend the triple option, especially this year with Blake Horvath, who's been running it really well, has been an incredibly explosive player. Someone that, if you haven't watched a lot of Navy games, go watch some highlights because he's been really, really good. How does Notre Dame prepare for this Navy team, and do you trust Notre Dame's young but very talented linebacker group in being disciplined against this option offense?
You know, they've had a lot better time with that in the last few weeks. Early in the season, as a lot of these guys, as Kingston and so much of this group, Drake Bowen, all take over, you've seen moments where the eyes start to wander a little bit. That's even been true for Jalen Sneed, who's an older player in that group relative to the rest of those guys. They've been more dialed in lately, but this is the ultimate test. You're right, because with this offense in particular, getting ready for the triple is such a unique animal. Notre Dame got them in week 1 last year, week 0, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. So you had all this extra time in training camp where, hey, if you're Notre Dame and you knew you've got 2 service academies on there, I'm sure they devoted periods to this in training camp. I'm sure they spent time over the summer. And, you know, Al Golden and Marcus Freeman both have experience defending this at Notre Dame, but it's still, you got to go to a completely different setup for the scout team that I was a part of and how you approach this offense and the defense in preparing for the cut blocks that come up front and in the box. Now, I will say, biggest change by far, you can't cut at the second level anymore. So for Notre Dame's receivers or for secondary DBs, they got to have a big day because they no longer have to worry about their legs getting taken out. But it's a complete 180. You've got to reteach even the scout team how to go out here and execute an offense that's foreign to them. So everybody, especially the guys on defense, though, have a lot to adjust for. And offensively, you've got to get used to the fact that your possessions, if Navy gets rolling, can be few and far between. And you've got to simultaneously try and go and execute without squeezing the wheel too tight, but also understand that making big plays, getting out early against this team in particular is at such a premium.
That is absolutely my biggest concern with this Notre Dame offense is that if they get out to a sluggish start like they did against Georgia Tech this past weekend, going 3-and-out in the first series, and then you only get 3 more possessions in the half while Navy just sort of like slow bleeds you and marches your defense down the field, it's going to be tough to get that back, and to get that back with explosive plays, which has been in the passing game Notre Dame's biggest weakness.
And if you haven't watched Navy in a while, this isn't your dad's Navy team either. Drew Cronick, the offensive coordinator, was the head coach at Mercer last year, came over and has added more of a spread element. Blake can throw the rock.
Yeah.
Like Blake Horvath, their quarterback, is fast, which I think is the most important thing for an option quarterback. He's incredibly decisive, and he's got an arm. So you've got to defend every phase against this team that's going to maybe not just bleed it out in the same wishbone that you're used to. They're going to give you more of the window dressing, and their quarterback is a playmaker.
What was that, Chris Cody?
Which family member is it, though? If it's not your dad's Navy, which family member is it?
Oh, that's probably like your weird cousin that went to arts, like a liberal arts college and like got into some like weird experimental stuff. Because it is a little bit more like when you think of the service academies, Air Force has always been a little bit of the freakier one where they'll do a little bit more pre-snap stuff than Army and Navy. And so now Navy is trying to match their freak a little bit.
Thank you, Chris, for that. Yes, Taylor?
But record-wise, this is probably closer to like
your grandfather's Navy. Yeah, for sure. Well, your grandfather's Navy was overseas fighting in World War II, probably. And actually, your grandfather's Navy is the reason why Notre Dame plays Navy, because of that whole World War II thing. But let's this is a tangent that we don't need to get down. I'm as a Notre Dame fan, Terrified. Absolutely terrified. I won't try to hide it. Number 8, LSU at number 14, Texas A&M this weekend. Texas A&M's gotten a lot of these tough games on their schedule at home this year. But okay, LSU, we maybe we didn't write them off in week 1 when they lost to USC, but we maybe forgot about them for a little bit. Garrett Nussmeier has been playing really, really well, especially under pressure. According to True Media, he's been pressured on 64 of 287 dropbacks and only been sacked 1 time. That will be going against a Texas A&M pass rush that has been excellent all season long, Mike. LSU's defense on the other side of the ball, they can create a lot of havoc. I don't know if you've been watching LSU linebacker Whit Weeks the past couple weeks, but he is playing out of his mind, and they can create a lot of havoc and sack you, tackle you. He can play in coverage, force fumbles. He can do everything. So this is going to be a huge game for the SEC standings, but I'm curious who you have in this one, because I'm a little torn right now.
I would probably lean LSU. I think Garrett Nussmeier is honestly what people expected Connor Wegman to be. And, we know he got off to a rough start with Notre Dame, was hurt for a little bit, came back and has played better. But even last week against Mississippi State, threw 2 interceptions and could have easily been more with some of the balls he put out there. I think it's going to be interesting for them. You mentioned that LSU defense. That's probably the biggest surprise for me with this team. They were the focus coming into this season, struggled a little bit week 1 and have been pretty banged up at the linebacker level, lost Harold Perkins, which is why the Whit Weeks phenomenon has grown. Him, Braden Swinson, the defensive front 7 for LSU has actually gotten after opposing offensive lines, messed up opposing backfields. Like, go turn on the Ole Miss game. They won that game in the trenches, bullying an Ole Miss team that was supposed to be loaded up on both sides of the ball there. Defensively, Ole Miss showed up and showed out. That group looked awesome, but I think offensively for LSU, huge boost. Caden Durham, the running back, true freshman running back, who really has been their lead guy since week 3, over 100 yards and multiple touchdowns this last week. Them having a rushing attack and a D-line can get after people, not what most people saw and left behind in week 1, to your point, and a big reason why I think they can win this game.
You convinced me. I'm going LSU in this one. Sorry, Kyle Field. You are going to experience your Taylor shaking his head because he's just like a Kyle Field stan for some
believer.
reason.
Yes.
Okay.
I will say, if you are a Kyle Field believer, the one thing that we've seen happen a lot this college football season, home crowds at raucous stadiums drawing a lot of penalties.
They should just throw some bottles on the field anytime they don't like a call, and then we'll be good.
That's kind of where we've arrived in college football right now. If you don't like it, we need the again, no one should do that. Please don't do that. But if you are, at least have the mustard bottle as a callback so that we can remember the Ole Miss Tennessee experience like that.
Okay. Before we go, Mike, Commodores, Longhorns. Go Doors, but Texas wins.
Yeah, no, Texas is probably going to throttle these guys. Go Doors. Like, it'd be awesome to see. Love Clark Lee, but I don't think this is going to work out for them.
All right, well, that was this week's edition of Jennifer College Football. Mike, thank you so much for joining. It was a blast. We'll have you back on sometime. Eat some peanuts.
Thanks, guys.
Have some Cheez-Its. Call it a day.
Hey, everybody, cool contest alert. Head over to DraftKings.com/pools for your opportunity to make predictions on the DraftKings Weekend Observations presented by Miller Lite contest. Basically, on the October 29th edition of Weekend Observations, you get to make predictions. Will happen. How many times will he be interrupted? How many beeps will there be? And if you win the contest, you can win a trip for 2 to Miami. You get to hang out with us here, watch a taping of the show, get to see all the sights and smells, and then get to watch a Thursday night football game at a Flanagan's, a local, wonderful establishment with cast members of the show.
I want to make people understand what this contest is, because it is legitimately something that I've been wanting to do since the first time I talked to DraftKings. How do we figure out how to give people valuable things who care about the show so much that can sort of wager on the show? And we've finally gotten to be able to do it. And that prize, I will tell you, as I've told you before, when we were at ESPN, that kind of prize, a lesser prize than that, actually, which was just sort of go to a Heat game with me and my dad, but not have dinner at Flanagan's with like our show while being involved in our show. It's legitimately a $30,000, $35,000 prize 5-10 years ago, before the internet.
So you're saying this is $1 million value,
I'm just saying that being able to spend that time with our show is something in the past that people have paid tens of thousands of dollars to do. And at inflated prices, if we were still doing it exactly that way, I could argue it's worth a great deal more than that right now. That prize, if you're right while betting on Stugotz's weekend.
Well, predicting. Okay.
Can I clarify one thing? You said October 29th weekend observations. Just so we're clear, that's a Tuesday.
Yes.
So it's a Tuesday of
Yes.
weekend obs. Got it.
The Tuesday edition of Weekend Obs. Hopefully, Stugotz is here for it. Hopefully.
We don't know if he will be, but it's a big prize. Mike, just cleaning up one thing from earlier in the show. Because you yelled at us with a great deal of resentment, I had to buy into a different company in order to talk about FSU week. Hashtag FSU WEAK. You feel like you have, in the last, I'm going to say 5 games, totally changed the power structure in Florida State college football. FSU was 13-0 not that long ago. Now you're mocking them and expect to win.
It wasn't popular. If you go back to last year's shows when we were talking about FSU, their CFP chances, it wasn't very popular for me to say they built their whole thing on a house of cards. They did very well in the portal. Mike Norvell didn't want to play Jordan Travis, and he kind of lucked into having Jordan Travis turn into a player that, if the media had time to establish a narrative properly, considering the reasons they were held out of the CFP, should have won the Heisman over Jaden Daniels. Because the whole argument of keeping them out was that guy went out, and he totally changed that program. But they didn't have anything behind him, and it wasn't popular. Everybody was saying Norvell was a good hire, Cristobal was a terrible hire, ha, 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 ha. And here we are, all the Florida schools, including the ones that were trying to get in the game, are all really struggling. Some of them, in fact, Florida's probably in the best shape of all the others right now. So I think college football is one of those sports where in the moment you want to overreact, but in today's day and age, knowing how different it is and knowing how certain coaches go about things, you got to reserve judgment on some guys. And it's not popular to say wait till year 3. But Mario Cristobal's proven to be one of those guys.
In order to promote all of the things that we have going on, Izzy, I want to tell people, first of all, Mike, repeat to them again how it is that they can get some of your exclusive betting information, because you have turned into somebody who is aggressively consuming information so that you can make smart bets and then hiding them behind your own personal paywall.
Well, it's just a bonus for the people that are kind enough to pay less than a cup of coffee, $2.99 a month on Twitter/X. Just super follow for that. We've been having a pretty good fall. Really good fall.
To promote your other endeavor, you have bought into a company where you are more of a Canes insider than you are here. And
can I just say this is my favorite postgame of all time?
I want to. Well, I'm just getting started promoting some of the things we have going on around here. you have bought ownership in a company that is doing Canes-specific information for people who care about this the way you do. So tell people about that as well.
Thank you very much, Dan. I sincerely appreciate that. We do daily content over at Canes Insight. D-Money and Peter Reeves do a fantastic job. We cover all the Miami Hurricane sports once a week. I'm on there typically on Wednesdays. But this is a forum that's existed for a long time, and you know how closely related forum message board culture is with college football. It's some of the craziest of the crazy. Canes Insight has about 8 million posts in its history, over 8 million posts. So, yeah, I was lucky enough to join with that enterprise, and we're doing really good stuff. And, again, it's not just for football, women's basketball, baseball, men's college basketball. It's very Hurricanes intensive, and I'm really enjoing it, and thank you for the opportunity.
Jess, why are you making faces?
Enough with the Canes. We need to talk about this Texas fan, Dan, that we've been wanting to talk about this kid all week. He went viral at the Texas game for just having the most magnificent head of hair. And now he's doing interviews. He's been in the Daily Mail. He did this interview with the Daily Mail on TikTok.
I looked like him in college, I would say. I had hair like that in
he
college.
did have hair like that.
I did.
He did have hair like that.
One of my original, I think my original column photo. You guys could probably find my original newspaper.
I drew devil horns on that photo of Dan when I was like 7 years old.
I had hair like
Before
that,
the
very
internet.
poofy, very poofy.
Dan, this kid's hair is just absolutely
It looks
outrageous.
photoshopped.
And he's having fun with this. So he went on this, did this interview with the Daily Mail where he talked about what he wants to do now that he's become an internet meme, and that, you know, he found out he was a meme because all of his friends from high school were texting his high school Spanish group chat, and they were like, "You're a meme," and he was like, "What?" Anyways, listen to what his big dreams are with his meme stardom.
Literally, as soon as the game ends, I turn around to my friends, and they're all on their phones, just in shock, and I'm like, what's up? And they go, you're a meme, Walter. I know Matthew McConaughey was cutting players' hair. Maybe he can cut mine on the field. I don't know. Raise some money for cancer awareness. My grandmother just recently got diagnosed with breast cancer and then beat it. If I can get onto the Talk to a podcast, I think that would be a life goal I could check off my bucket list.
I missed the joke because they were counting down in my ear. I didn't hear anything that you guys were laughing at.
I was going to make a joke that he's like, I bet you he's going to want to be on Talk to and he actually said that that's a dream of his.
I love this kid.
Raise money for cancer, or I'll go on the Talk to a podcast.
Why not both?
He was wearing the same shirt because you have to when you're famous for 3 seconds over one thing. Put up on the screen, please, my original column photo. This isn't actually even the one that I was thinking of, although this one's pretty good as well, I would say.
Wow.
I have another one that's even poofier.
How old were you in this photo?
Early 20s, I'm going to say.
No.
You think I look 30?
You look younger now than you do in that photo.
So you have me being how old?
No es pa tanto, Jess. No es pa tanto. No es pa tanto.
We have a couple of other things.
That's an old 20. I'm sorry.
To promote here. One of
Young
them.
Dan taking strays.
I don't understand what's happening.
Old Dan getting complimented. How about that?
Okay, yeah,
It
that's
was the 90s.
the other.
Wait, was it?
Hard living.
Pre-internet. Again, this is the one that I was thinking of.
Yeah.
although I guess I got my hair cut a little bit shorter there. So
Yeah,
What are
you look
doing in
very
this
young in
photo?
that
You look like you're
picture.
hiking a football.
Why are you so hell-bent on out-poofing this guy?
that's what I looked like when I was in high school
He's
and
got the
college.
Blanche Devereaux.
Is it one of your lifelong dreams to go on Talk to Oh, you should do that, though.
I should do
Seriously, in terms of audience
Ooh,
acquisition.
you should have her on South Beach Sessions.
We can
What
use the
happened
rub.
to your dimple?
Thank you for mentioning South Beach Sessions. It's one of the things that I want to promote here in a very promotional post game. Another one is the pitch clock, which Jeremy has done a very cool job with. I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say about this World Series because he's the only one here like me who actually cares about baseball. The rest of you are embarrassing.
Wait till you hear the basketball show we cooked up. Shot clock.
Coming your way soon, Dano.
You and Jeremy have an offshoot brand of just various clocks.
Tick, tick.
Well, now we do.
South Beach Sessions, the reason that I was in California for a week on top of other business is because we are fortifying the South Beach Sessions property, and I really enjoyed everything that we did in California. We have so much material that I interviewed Pat Riley for 2 hours this week, and we're not going to be able to play it until after the season.
What?
We've just got a lot of different stuff that we've gotten done over the last. I'm going to get criticized whenever the Pat Riley thing does run, because I'm not going to ask him any of the hard questions about why they're 9-31. And Jimmy Butler that's like set fire to something in the locker room. People are going to say it's a soft interview. It's because it was done before the season and because we did so much in Los Angeles. But one of the things that we did in Los Angeles is we sat down with Skip Bayless, and that's going to come out at 2:00 today on YouTube. I'm going to give you a clip because how do you guys think the first thing my wife said to me as I was leaving the house to go do it is, "You've talked a lot of shit about that dude." Like, I thought you didn't like him. Why are you talking to him?
On top of things.
She was asking me, and she doesn't know anything about anything. She's like, but I've heard you don't talk shit about like that about anybody. And so people are surprised I'm going to talk to Skip Bayless. How do you guys imagine that's going to go? Like when we get together, because I'm not gonna hide from what I've said about him.
I didn't know that you were interviewing him, and you sent Bayless to me in a chat, and I thought it was Rick Bayless, the celebrity chef, which is actually Skip's brother. But I thought it was far more likely that you'd be talking to a celebrity chef than the Skip Bayless. And then I saw the photo on social media in which you guys were – actually, I saw somebody do a head swap, which was, it was pretty funny.
Wait. Can you send it to me?
Yeah, I can send it to you. And I was shocked that it was indeed Skip Bayless because, yeah, you've talked some shit.
And so what are you expecting? Are you expecting fireworks?
I hope you fight him in the show, like you just say.
I'm expecting Skip has no idea that you talk crap about him.
I'm expecting you say Bayless to him at least once.
He does know I've talked shit about him. Well, this one of the things that I'm trying to do with South Beach Sessions, because we talked to Jim Rome as well. Like, I want to understand how people became who they became. Like, how did this happen that you're 72-year-old sports take guy who gets all his identity out of I've got to beat you in a sports argument? And so here's one of the exchanges. All of this will be out later today. I found it illuminating that how he became the guy who chases LeBron James across 20 years? Because daddy and mommy really didn't love him and were drinking way too much. And so he hid in the sports identity of I'm going to be sports take guy. I've been pretty critical of you and debate culture and Stephen A. Smith. I don't know how much of that has gotten to you. I don't know how you feel about how much of that has gotten to you.
Stephen A., who you have grilled about ruining it all for all of us. Wasn't that your...
Contaminated it in a way that made the athlete a little less human than I would like him to be. But you guys also created a path for me where I was able to zig where the zagging was because I became a player apologist, someone who was viewed as a player apologist, because I was less critical of the athlete than you guys was. And there's great money to be made in everything that we're doing. Some of it feels like professional wrestling. I know that you don't feel like a wrestling character.
No, I am completely the opposite of a wrestling character in that, to a fault, I'm as authentic and real as you can get. And it took Stephen A. a while to grasp the fact that while I loved him, I genuinely wanted to beat him every time we argued sports. It became known as debate, your least favorite word in the culture. And he realized over time, I'm as real as you can get to my core, that I take it very seriously, way more seriously than I take myself. But if you challenge me with the little red light on, across the desk from me, I am going to fight you to the death, to the TV death.